Have to call to order. Call the public hearing of the Henry County Council for the 2025 budget to order. We don't need to for a hearing, they said yesterday morning. No problem. Whatever welcome August, call to order the August 1st public hearing, or second of four. We're waiting on some council members. I've been informed legally we don't have to have a quorum to begin. Main docket today, there's been a couple of changes and additions and modifications. We're speaking about raises, insurance, making it equitable among the departments, especially those departments that have their own tax rate, which health, 911, highway. Who am I missing? Memorial Park. Thank you. They have their own, and in the past, they've not been paying same as equally among the four, or even close to it. We're getting closer, but we're going to get very close this year. So on Monday, we have Addie from Wagner and Shealy for 2 hours, 8:30 to 10:30. She's given us data, but she asked us to embargo it until Monday after she speaks, because there's a lot of explanation and footnotes to her research. I think she met with most department heads earlier in the spring or earlier this year, and all that shows up in the report that'll be shared on Monday. Speaking of Monday, Memorial Park clerk at 10:30, Memorial Park at 11. Clerk at 10:30, Memorial Park at 11. We're squeezing in the coroner, Brian, at 11:45. We'll take a later than usual lunch and come back, and whatever we've not talked about officially on raises, LITs, CCD, insurance, we'll wrap that up, mostly wrap it up on Monday afternoon. What we have today at 10:30 is the health department, and that's it. So 2 hours of talking raises, not mentioning specifics because the embargoed WIS report that she's requested, insurance, workman's comp, those kinds of things. And our main researcher is Shannon, who's doing last minute. These are spreadsheet extraordinaire. I thought
For about the next 4 months.
Okay. We've been duly forewarned. Going to pass the torch to Chad, is that what?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, you have done most of the research. You're still doing research. We appreciate that. You did that for the Thursday night. Well, that is in the paper this morning, at least half of what is it? Thursday now? Well, this Thursday, a week later, we have a report in the paper about 2 of the 3 LITs we passed. You ready to turn it over, or anybody else have anything? We are expecting Kyle and Betsy.
I'd prefer to wait for Kyle and Betsy.
Okay, what else do you want to talk about, council? Okay. Yeah, my tape's not working, so. Oh, I thought you were all do the report. You'll do the report after the tape. Group health, liability insurance, wage and salary is a biggie. Wages paid out of other funds. We spoke to the recorder yesterday. We found out others are doing that, but most of the others that are doing that are being creative over in the Justice Center. They have multiple funds, and some of the modifications are being made out of other side funds that they have, federal, 4D, et cetera. But we don't think we're consistent across the county, so we need to be consistent across departments.
If there's one thing that we do before other council members come, it might be the liability insurance split. What do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, I'm open to discussing. Do we have any
I'll add that to his list.
idea of
You have
what
it right
the
here.
increases in the liability insurance have been?
Oh, yeah. Yep, it is on your list. I did mention it, I think.
So we should just start with a list of where all liability is coming. We're not sure.
I don't know. I know Betsy said she was gonna be a few minutes late, but we don't know what that means.
Oh, good.
Okay. The projected numbers for next year.
While we're waiting, I have the annual AIC. Did you ask Debbie for a copy? Debbie, Shannon, and Susan would like an actual printed copy. Because they
Thank you,
only give
Debbie.
us two freebies, one for the president of the council and one for the auditor. These are expensive, but we got it last Friday. Those numbers are incorporated in what I'm about to hand out. I'll give you.
Thanks.
That's part of the embargoed information and ask us. It's a spreadsheet. It's embargoed until Monday as per Patty Rooker.
Shannon, what did Bobby have for you?
She's got a breakdown of the total costs of liability insurance and broken down by department.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
it's not as clean cut as we'd like because we now have insurance from different organizations, but
Right.
so she's gonna have 3 sheets of paper for
Okay.
all the council members.
Thank you.
Well, we're still waiting on the two council members that we expect. What I handed out is the AIC. It gives a comparison between us and counties in different ranges of population. We're the largest, most populated in the 40 to 50,000. And I've selected most of the categories and job positions that seemed relevant to us, most relevant to our work here, and put it in a spreadsheet. I've done this since 2019. And what I have is each position, what the current Henry County salary's been 2018 before you and I came on. 2020 after we came on, 2022, 2024. The printout only does that if I gave you the actual spreadsheet. And to the right of the print area is also 2023, but it's not on this because I ran out of space unless I went landscape. The only error I saw this morning was road deputies. I did not get the right figure in from Wagner, Irwin, Shealy, and I wrote those in. It's in the middle of the blue space, the poll workers on the first page, about a third of the way down. So the only other thing I missed on Fayette County Certified Assessed Valuation, I put 920K, and that should be 920 million. And we're out of 14 counties that, thank you, 14 counties that Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy compares us with. 3 have a lower assessed valuation than Henry County, 10 have higher. So we're definitely in the lower tier of the counties they compare us with. But again, Fayette is 920 million, not the K, not thousand. And we're basically a little less than $2 billion. And the only ones, the 3 that are less than us are Randolph, Rush, and Fayette. The lavender color under the low county of the 8 that reported, we are the lowest county in the population of 40,000 to 50,000 and 22 of the 53 lines. No other county had the lowest of the 8 counties than Henry County. That's 42 positions out of the 53 that I have reported. 42% were the lowest. 5 years ago, we were 42%. We thought we were making headway against inflation. We're not. We're same old near the bottom tier. We can proceed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry for being late.
I brought cookies.
No, thank you.
You will thank me at noon. I'm ready to turn it over to whoever. We have a quorum, even though it's not necessary. It's nice. What sheet are you working from?
Are we gonna go ahead and do
The new one? Do you have it?
so
You have this? It's new. Okay. Go ahead.
the list of things that we talked about doing today were wages and then liability insurance and the group health.
Mhm.
And we wanted as many people here from the council for the wage discussion. So we were going to start with the liability insurance and how it's split between different departments right now. And that's what the worksheets in front of you are that.
That's what I told her. I'm having a hard time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
What he said.
Debbie, can you talk us through exactly what we're seeing right here? Okay, thanks.
Which one are you? The liability insurance and that have liability premiums on the top, is that one and the inland marine one, them used to come in one bill. So now it's two, so it's gonna. Under law enforcement, they had a credit where they canceled the last one and they carried the credit over. Like Yeah,
Okay.
526 credit.
Okay.
So this year we didn't pay quite as much, but next year it's gonna be the 319,187 under just the law enforcement part.
Okay. So this year, for these 5 carriers from the general fund, you paid 142,188.
Well, it wasn't all from the general fund. If you look down like, community corrections paid a portion, ambulance, that went to Mandy. The park and the highway both paid whatever's written up. It's broke down between each department. So if you go across,
Well, so for example, the general fund there,
well, I had to add the general fund with that plus the sheriff. The Hall of Fame, EMA.
right?
So we have to factor them all in.
EMA didn't have or EMA, oh, no, EMA, never mind.
Yeah.
That's,
Yes. So I was just going to give for example, in the general fund line, if you read across for general liability, we paid this 142,000
Plus all the.
plus the 11,601 plus the 27,000.
Yes,
And that's what we did for 2024.
yes.
Okay. And that's what we think 2025 is going to be as well. We're not sure yet.
Then we had to pay this amount also, the 174,605, that's part of our liability too. That's for property, inland, marine and crime. So, because it's all broke down now.
because we have so many different carriers, we have to break everything out.
And is this how for example, under ambulance for auto, this 13,534, is that actually from the carrier? That's actually what it costs. Okay, so these are allocated from the carrier per department.
But a lot of the departments didn't have that budgeted, so commissioners had to pick up a lot of it.
The commissioner's budget did.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So okay,
Mandy had only budgeted 20,000 for this, so the commissioners had to pick up over 9,000
Yeah.
on one of them.
so this is the breakdown from the carriers, not necessarily how it was paid for 2024.
Right.
Okay.
Do I?
So for 2025, are we wanting each department to pick up what the carrier's charging them?
Pardon?
I was a,
Okay.
but I want your opinion too, if you have one, but I was just saying, are we wanting each department to pick up their costs from the carrier for 2025?
Well, it's going to be significant with some departments, but I don't know how much of an increase it would be. Most,
We included the sheriff increase already in the
Right.
safety lit budget we submitted.
right.
The
So-
only department that had enough was the highway.
Well, I
The
thought,
highway was the only one that had enough
Well,
this year to pay for all
Casey
theirs.
did a transfer to pay for hers.
Yeah, and Casey did a transfer to pay for hers.
So park and highway, so highway picked up their 58,000. And the park picked up the 7,000.
Well, and then they had like the other one on this sheet too. So they had the additional 69 and the 12,000 too.
That's why it takes Bobby about 3 days to figure out how.
Thank you for
you.
doing that.
Well, they just send you a bill and then I have to contact them and then they work with me trying to break it down between the departments. So it's as close as we can get.
Okay,
well, so far we've thanked the two Bobbies.
so the park picked up their 7,000, their 6,900, and their 355. They picked up all that.
Yes.
And the highway picked up their 58,000 plus this 12,000 property and 4,000 inland marine. They picked up all theirs. Okay. And the youth center, the
The
YOC,
commissioners pay that.
that came from commissioners.
Is that our youth center here?
Mhm.
Not the Y, okay. Figured.
What was that question?
I said it's a youth center up on the hill, not the YOC that we used
Right,
to
right,
pay a
okay.
lot of money for beds. Just clarification.
You also have to remember that in this too, in February or March, they
Yep.
went back and did an audit for
22 and
22,
23.
23. So all the departments,
There was a shortfall, so we had to make that
all
up.
the departments had to make up for that shortfall. And that was, I think that was in February or March, we did that, April maybe. something.
Yeah, it was just before all these bills came
Yeah.
out.
So they had those shortfalls from the audit.
Because I know like the park had to pay an additional like $2,200 for the audit.
So what was that audit?
It was up 22 and 23. So
Right.
like if the claims come in higher than what
Okay.
we had been billed, then you have to pick up the rest.
So
So
the
who had
state-
had the commissioners paid those claims or had those not been paid?
Everything's paid.
Well, before in 22, 23, the commissioners had picked up that
Well,
excess.
we would have,
They audit themselves every year.
Yeah.
The insurance
They audit themselves not every year.
no,
No, they audit themselves every 2 or 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And then once they estimate what our claims are
Yeah.
gonna be.
Okay, the
when that's
insurance
over
companies
that-
audit. Okay, all
When
right,
it's over that estimate, then we have to pick
okay,
up.
all right.
So that was a insurance company audit or state board of account audit?
insurance company.
Okay.
So we're paying property insurance for the Hall of Fame. Okay, I didn't realize that.
That will,
Yeah.
yeah, it's only through
Really?
construction. Once the construction's done, then we don't have to.
Oh,
It's
this is the
only-
new, this is the
it's
new
only
piece of
through the
it.
Construction. that we
Okay.
Have to pick it up.
Construction of the 3 buildings.
Well, the new that we're doing from the food and beverage, I think.
That's
So-
why we're paying all that.
Okay, I'm on the same wavelength.
Okay,
So traditionally, each department, and of course, we're really talking about the ones that have their own tax base, have budgeted for some dollars to pay their portion of liability insurance. But we've not changed their amounts to keep up with whatever we've been getting. Is that accurate? Okay.
The same way with workman's comp, it went up also.
Right, I see that as the 3rd page. Thank you for that. So I guess from my standpoint, I feel like,
they need to be
We-
updated.
yeah, we need to just
Yeah.
update the amounts in those individual budgets to reflect more closely to what
And-
our
I mean, there can
actual
always be increases next year depending on
premiums.
how much they're used.
Right,
Right,
it's always a year, it's always based on the previous year, right? So if we are approaching, if we have a bunch of liability in one year or a bunch of workers' comp claims in that situation, we should plan to budget more the following year, which is difficult to predict, but I don't see any reason to change it, how we've separated it out and had each department pay their specific portions. We just need to adjust the amounts to be more accurate based on what we've seen.
Because-
That's my opinion.
Because the actual new numbers, the adjustment takes place mid-year, where typically state of Indiana, our budget's January to December 31st. We're having to get out of the mode of looking at January 1st, making adjustments, or now making adjustment for January 1st. And insurance is one of those that really falls into that category of maybe needing a mid-year adjustment, but doing the best we can now to estimate what that could be, but that's, my crystal ball's not fine tuned to what that's gonna be next spring.
No, that's,
So if we tell you guys to just update them to reflect who's not gonna be able to cover that expense? If they all need to be updated to pay these, which departments are not gonna be able to cover that? I think the,
She'll be here in 2 hours. We ought to ask her that. She's not here now.
I just don't know what Angela has allowed for from year to year because she uses so many different funds. So I don't know, because she's told how to spend her money a lot.
Right. And her state funds help, it does help her a lot with her new state funds, so she's probably able to carry
well,
that
I'm
burden.
not seeing a
not-
liability
No,
insurance issue with health, but, and I'm not saying issue, I'm saying that they're covered by the general,
Yeah.
but from a workers' comp, I'm not seeing the health department in the workers'
Well-
comp.
It's workman's comp's kind of hard to divide, like physicians, I give that to the health department.
Okay,
I think that's the only one she took. I tried to look at this year, I just kind of looked at their budgets and tried to work with to where they had enough to cover it and took the rest from.
so that's this handout,
Mhm.
workman comp.
Yes.
I think we need to accurately distribute those costs to those departments as well and see how close they are.
It's kind of hard, like clerical, a lot of departments have clerical, like highway, everybody does, so I mean, it's kind of a guessing game.
So in workman's comp, the biggest chunk by far relate to police. Then I assume streets would be highway because
Right.
of working out on the roads. And third, ambulance, the others fall, parks would be fourth, but it's way behind. Okay. I don't see anything shocking, just expensive.
so how have you split clerical historically?
I think it just, the commissioners have just took it.
I don't know how you would split that,
Mhm.
not knowing how much they charge an employee.
Meaning the insurance companies, we don't know how much.
We give them the list of how many employees we have, like they want to know clerical. And they don't ask them broke down by departments or anything, they just want a grand total of everything.
That's
So
our,
we give that to them like every couple of years.
that's our discussion with Josh. When we got to we needing to know how many with families, dependents,
Right.
employee only, it got complicated. So that we could come up with a total cost of what it costs that we have to
You
budget.
guys may want to, like in your budget, maybe put some kind of cushion for if it does take a big increase next year to where we can pull from, so it ain't affecting the ones that come up short.
Talking more about liability right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you never know what next
Right.
year's gonna bring.
Right.
Unless you just increase the commissioners that much
Yeah.
more.
To pick up any
Well, I
overage
think
each
that's-
year.
Not just a little bit,
I think that's gonna have to happen, given everything. They've been the ones picking up shortages. I think that's justified. You're gonna say something, Kai?
So it's just arriving at that number, what the amount to budget for an overage would be. We can work with hard numbers here, but then I mean, does it do any good to have the last 3 years of what the premiums we paid versus what we budgeted are, just to get like a rough idea of how that data's come to fruition through the course of the year versus the budget? Or is it an easy answer, a 10% or 15%, you know? I think that's where we are right now, I think.
I would have expected the premiums to be pretty close to actual in the past. Unless I've just not been aware of any.
Well, it's never increased as much as this
Right.
year.
I think it might drag down the average of what it could be. in the
Right, I
future,
think,
but-
but we could pull out the premium increases that we know are increasing for certain reasons, like from the sheriff's budget, where we know we've had to do things. Those are more of the anomalies versus what's been traditional or standard over the last couple of years. You see where I'm going?
Well, clarification, are you saying those departments that use the most should pay their fair share because they're contributing to the increase the most? I mean, everybody pays.
I think so, and I think that also we have to look at, like we've been talking about, what departments have sources of
Available.
revenue that are earmarked more specifically to them for those uses as well.
Is there a specific 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 that's most legitimate for the 1,000 to take this kind of premium out of? 3,000. So we need to look at their 3,000 budget.
And I think going forward, to keep this consistent and operating in a way that's easy to understand, and this exercise that we're going through now doesn't have to be done again, I think it makes sense to just continue to use exactly the same line items and budgets. Once we get that nailed down, really get that solidified so that there's consistency going forward.
Do we need a separate line item for a specific kind of insurance like liability? Is that?
And-
Comp-
Yeah, you have a liabilities line and you have a workman's comp line,
So
and that's how we keep them separate.
it's a matter of coming up with a fair amount.
Yeah, so it's easy to track, and we don't have to worry, or we don't have to consider, well, if we could have a standardized way where if there were overages and they were paid from or had funds reappropriated from somewhere else, where it was consistent throughout the entire budget, you have one set process so that we know, like, okay, we had a bunch of overages last year in this department. The money came from here. That way it's easy to track, and we're not looking at three different, maybe line items where money was reappropriated to cover an overage, something just to give it more consistency so we know exactly how things are
I think.
moving on a year-to-year basis.
I think we all agree, and I think probably the auditors department would agree with that. Much as we can streamline it. Shannon, you're not speaking up.
I agree.
So how do we do it? We've got the numbers. The numbers are
So
staring
they,
at us.
I think that they need to be updated in this budget information so we can look at it and see the impact on any one department. We haven't talked to Angela yet. We haven't talked to the park yet. The highway already took theirs last year, so they should be okay to take it this year.
They should be okay.
And,
When they're getting new equipment and stuff, their insurance is gonna go up.
Oh, sure.
yeah.
So like if the highway's getting new stuff so you gotta, I said it, you just gotta remember if they get new equipment, their insurance is gonna go up if they're so you gotta allow for that. I know the highways mentioned getting some new stuff. I don't know what, but
Yeah, possibly, but new equipment usually doesn't cause the problems for insurance as the
right,
old equipment that's falling apart
yeah, but
because of the cost.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, Mandy had to pay.
Right.
Will eventually
Cost
show
of
up in the,
Unless they
we
retire
don't just
older.
have a,
They usually do.
I will add, Mandy did have a separate bill for a 2023 ambulance that was like, $3,600 that was additional on top of
Sure.
this. Because it was
And
the way.
I just want to clarify, this audit and these numbers that we just got these last week, it's not like we've been sitting on these for 6 months.
Okay.
We just got these numbers, was it end of first of last week?
I just,
We
I
just
actually
did the
got
claims this
claim
week.
done this week,
Yeah.
so, and that's why we just put them in to talk to you
Yeah.
at budget time instead of,
It's good to have, appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
And like I said, in the highway case, some of what they're replacing, they're going to retire
right,
or sell. But if it's a net additional, you're right.
right.
The
Well, just
premium
like
will
the
go
sheriff
up.
is driving, their whole department's gonna have a lot newer cars than we've ever had in the past, so.
It will go up.
That's a good point.
That's next week
Yes.
be addressed. Thoughts? Can we take specific action based on recommendations you have?
The only request I would ask is it feasible for you, Bobby, to look at these numbers and break them out by department for us so we can see those? And then we want to compare them to what's budgeted in their actual. I know you kind of did that for us verbally here, but I want to know how much in total it's gonna affect each of the 4 that have their own funds. Well, I want to see the totals because we have what they budgeted, right? And that's what I want to compare to. Does that make sense?
So I could get you the letter I sent out to everyone telling them what they owed,
Okay,
but then that's still not
Mhm.
gonna, because I took what if they didn't have the money, I put it in the commissioner's budget.
right.
So,
So for next year, though, we're trying to prepare for the budget. Can you
Uh-huh.
take what they owed plus what they had in their budget and give us that total? For
yeah, I can come close, I think.
it's budgeting. We just got to get close.
Okay,
So my suspicion is they're all not budgeted with enough to cover, right?
right,
So that's what we want to do is try to make
okay,
it work. So if you can get those for us,
Okay.
maybe we can make those changes and look at them after next week.
okay.
So the
Okay.
health department has 2,100 budgeted, which is basically what the expense is, about 2,000. Unless I'm missing a line item.
Debbie, what you just handed out, that's just updated numbers from the spreadsheet we looked at yesterday.
Yeah. If we're done talking about liability and workers' comp, I'll share with you what this is.
So we should throw away yesterday's.
Yeah,
Or-
throw away yesterday's.
Ignore yesterday's.
Ignore yesterday's. This is with all of the Humana participants removed.
We're on this.
Yes. This is the group medical insurance premiums by department. With all of the Humana participants removed. It does still include retirees that have continued to have a vision and dental plan on their retired insurance plan. And the rest of them are all, my assumption is between the ages, or under age 65 and haven't gotten to the
Medicare.
Medicare yet.
In memory, was it 86?
There were
And then
86.
63 of them.
63 of them were
Humana.
on Humana owned.
23 on regular insurance.
Yeah,
Okay.
so those are reflective of what you see here.
Thank you for your work on this. All of you,
And thank the auditor's office and Stephanie for putting those numbers together for us.
all of you and Stephanie. She's not here. Thank you, Stephanie.
That's dental and vision only. In highway, they're all on Humana. The Humana number's not in there at all.
That's the main difference from yesterday.
Yes. It certainly was. So the question of how to allocate group medical insurance to 911, health, highway, and Memorial Park is whether or not to include the retirees from those departments.
That is the question.
For those of you in the audience, I'll share the totals 911 department is roughly 160,000 employees only. Health is 136,000 employees only. Highway is 454,000 employees only. Memorial Park is 43,000 employees only. Include the retirees in that amount. The 911 goes from 160 up to 233. Health goes from 136 up to 160. Highway goes from 454 to 454. They have one employee taking vision and dental only as a retiree, so the price actually only went up $235. The Memorial Park went from 43 to 69,000.
So it's 123,000 roughly for all of the retirees. I think I'm not
In those four departments.
four
Right.
Line
departments,
item.
yeah.
correct. And I don't think it would be bad to take that from the general fund,
It's kind of where it's been coming from now.
right?
How much? 123?
Roughly.
All added up.
The council agree, currently it's out of the general fund for that roughly 123,000 for the retirees and those four departments that have their own tax rate, 911, E911, Health, Highway, Memorials to take out of the general fund, continue to take it out of the general fund. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's,
That's a very fair.
the
request.
retirees is 123, 137, 31.
137 instead of 123.
123, 137,
Okay, so
and 31
123.
cents.
So for 2024, the contribution from those four departments towards insurance was 967,000. And that's what went towards our insurance.
Yeah,
payment
and
that
I'll share
didn't-
with you the total of the other numbers for employees only is 794.
Right.
619. So we would be actually increasing the impact on the general fund.
Correct.
By how much?
Well, the difference between those numbers, which I'm not going to do in my head, 173,000, is that what you're thinking, Shannon?
Give me that first number.
The one from 2024 was 967,500. The employees listed here are 794,288. The retirees are roughly 123,000.
$172,880.
Right.
So 173 was rounded well.
If we look at what was budgeted, 911 department is, if we included retirees, they would not have budgeted enough.
Correct.
Health department would have over budgeted.
Correct.
Yes, we mentioned that yesterday.
Park is under budgeted.
Park, it would be under budgeted, and highway, I need to look at.
They would have more. They went up from
They would
last
have
year, so they
over-budgeted.
would have over budgeted. I can't remember the number.
Well, we told him yesterday that the monies we put aside for cumulative bridge, we ate into quite a bit of that, so he can have that little bit of back.
So did we make the final decision to take the retiree expense from the general fund? Or are we still talking about it?
We're talking, she mentioned it was from the commissioner's budget, so when we talk commissioners,
I mean, it is, but the overall number is, yeah.
But you already taken retirees out of yours. Retirees already come out of the commission's budget, always done.
Well,
no.
Yeah, there's the issue of the commissioner's budget and then just the health of the fund in general. If we'll either increase the commissioner's budget by this 173,000, not just the 123,000, or we will fund the insurance fund less and see if it decreases over time or not. It's been increasing.
Right, so that's what happens right now. The funds coming out of these departments for budget gets put into the group medical insurance fund.
Yeah.
Okay. So it would not negatively impact the commissioner's budget that
No.
pays the actual premiums. Thank you for the help with that, Bobby and Debbie. Expecting it to go up just like everything else, yeah.
So part of the discussion is probably looking at the trend of that insurance fund over time. It's our choice how we want to fund it. It is increasing slowly, but we don't want it to ever decrease. So,
It's held its own since
yeah,
2019. It's held its own.
So I concur,
we are, yeah.
I concur with just leaving the employee amounts only as kind of on this sheet
Mhm.
for those 4 departments, and let's make that work.
And then increasing the commissioner's budget by the 123 or the 173.
It sounds like we don't need
about it.
to, because those expenses won't change. They're paying it, and then these amounts that come out of these 4 departments just go to the group medical insurance. They're paying for the entire premium already.
To me, it just looks like a decrease of 173,000 going into the insurance fund if we don't
That's
change.
exactly what it is.
And we're just gonna watch that balance over time.
I think we have to.
That's what we've been doing.
Okay.
And we have watched it, and it is $1 million.
Okay.
But
I
in
think
20,
that's okay.
in 2018,
It was negative.
it took a hit of 750,000. So that $1 million cushion is not,
We get a
Justified.
monthly report on the health of what we're spending every month. I think Ken and you
I-
might
I-
get it. I know I get it. And
share
Josh
it.
keeps us informed on how things are going, and
Right.
we are doing very well in that
Yeah.
health fund. Very, very well in
Right.
that health fund.
and I share it with the council, that what I get from Josh.
So I get what you're saying, Susan, reducing it by $172,000 contribution every year. And these numbers are based on current year
Right.
employees and their
Sure.
selections. And in the past, we have always said, okay, this is what we think plus 1. So if we look at that amount and try to potentially add some buffer in there for if someone in each department gets married, adds dependents, an additional employee is hired, that's been the biggest concerns, is how that works. So I'm not saying we need to budget this exact dollar amount. I'm saying we should budget slightly more than that dollar amount in each one, just to
Okay.
have a little buffer.
And that's what we did last year.
Yeah, we added
We took
plus
the
1,
average of about 23 something and
20,
added one.
22,500.
So
Yeah.
are we gonna do a percentage over in each one?
Well, in person at which rate is the key, right? So I would suggest we add a dollar amount,
Okay.
round these numbers off for the budget.
Go ahead and make a recommendation so we can move on.
Did you have a dollar amount in mind? If we.
Shouldn't we
if
look at how many, what this currently represents?
The
from an
number of
employee
employees.
Standpoint, so that we can actually,
He has it on his computer.
right,
So for 911, they have a grand total of 11 employees. And it gets complex because 1 is on a member-only Plan A, 8 are on a member-only Plan B. 1 is Plan B member with dependents, and 1 is member and family.
Mhm.
But we have to take an average or do something
Right,
in all 4. Like a member dependent or something in the middle. It'll drive us crazy if we have to
right, absolutely.
calculate.
My,
all this
my
something,
inclination is to increase them by that roughly
22,
15,000 maybe.
15.
If
I
you do
think-
5% for each one.
Well, I think
you know,
what he's talking about is a buffer in case somebody's added.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Or
So,
change it,
so
'cause
you're
it could
gonna
go up
add
or
it by
down.
the rough amount of a person.
Yeah.
That's
'Cause-
fine.
Yeah, because adding 5% to the parks budget doesn't accomplish anything.
You're right.
It's gonna accomplish probably too much for the highway.
What do you guys think of 911 being at 175?
So
Health-
you're running about 15 per. Is that what
Yeah,
you're
I'm
gonna
trying
do?
to get close.
In rounding the numbers, okay?
Okay, 175.
175, 150 at health,
Okay,
470 at highway, and 60 at health, or at
Okay.
Memorial Park. What do you guys think? Is that reasonable to put in the budget?
that's at least
So
15,000.
everyone wins but the park in that scenario, and they got a huge
They got a,
relief last year.
they got
So
a huge relief
in
last year.
23, they had budgeted 125,000. We took
Right.
them down to 45,000 last year, so
So 60 sounds pretty good.
it won't.
The
I
last
mean,
3 years.
Yeah, it won't this year, but yeah.
Those all sound like reasonable numbers.
Okay. All right,
175,
150.
Could you state those again?
911 was 175.
75.
health was 150,
Yes,
highway was 470,
yes,
park was 60.
yes.
That is
Okay.
10 times closer than 3 years ago,
I think that is, I feel good about
where
that.
some departments were paying twice
I
per
think
person what
The,
others.
the
so-
question from the auditors is, do we want them to go ahead and change those numbers in the budget?
Yes,
Why
I
not?
think
Yes.
so.
And keeping in mind, these budgets have already been submitted to the
State.
to the state, so we're going to have to find appropriate changes
Like
if-
last
for
year.
those that might have
Balance.
seen increases.
Right. It would be just the park.
I would think just the park.
Yeah.
Who we'll talk with on Monday. What next, council?
While we're discussing those 4 departments, I would like to suggest that all 4 departments have the liability insurance line in their budget, a workers' comp line, perf line, the group medical insurance line is there, and a social security line.
They
Some of
do.
them have them all grouped into benefits,
No,
which
that-
makes it difficult for me to. Can we separate them?
like, look,
You'll have to talk to them about what they budgeted for
What they've
each,
submitted, then how would I'd have to be,
She'd have to get with them to see.
see how it breaks down. Because if we discuss changing wages, perf changes, social security changes, but medical benefits do not. So I just would like to be able to,
so would we be, like, when you go over each ones, can you tell me what ones, how you want added and broke down per,
for each budget.
yeah,
Yeah, those 4 departments need to have those,
just those 4 departments is what?
need to have those 5
With their own
lines.
tax
Yeah.
rate. Looking over health, knowing she was coming in, Angela had those separated out pretty much, but not
Yeah.
every department does.
That's my concern. We can,
911 was that separate.
Yeah.
And you said 911 was separate.
yes. And here, I'll hand this to you. This is those 5 things I just said.
I'm not sure the park is broken out into those
I
4
don't think the
It may
park
categories.
not be,
is.
I don't think it is either. Most of them just have liability and workman comp lines.
Yeah, Angela's good, but you're right with the
But I
others.
don't,
They're
I
not
think they have
consistent.
both. Most of them have social.
Some just have one that says benefits, and that's difficult for me to separate.
Good idea. Thanks. What next on the list? You do. I give it back to you.
Wages now, I thought yours,
Like Susan has a list too.
they're the same list.
No.
Shannon just wrote neater than I did.
Okay. What
So,
next?
anybody want to have a discussion about wages paid out of other funds?
Yes. I've got to sometime.
I voiced my opinion yesterday.
You were against it.
I was against, and we saw the repercussions of that throughout the day. And I
Right.
suspect we will continue to see some of that possibly this afternoon
Could be.
and more next week.
Do you have a list of departments who have some wages? Were you keeping a list?
No, I
Okay.
mean,
I mean, it started with, the
started with
recorder,
the
but
recorder,
then
and then
we
saw-
went into the courts and they're doing it too.
Right.
Oh.
multiple
And
budgets.
specifically in probation, that one fund, she can only use it for wages.
True.
So not using it for wages would just let it sit there.
If that's the specific use of the fund, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
That fund, that's why I asked if she could
Right.
provide
And then it was
what
the
all that fund
prosecutor.
can be used for, the prosecutor as well.
Was he
yeah.
already doing it or offering to do it?
He was offering to do it, I think.
He said that. Because he wanted to get certain employees, that he had the money to do so, that wasn't restricted. Which is similar to the recorder.
So, Shannon, philosophically, I think it is better if everything comes from the general fund. But because our funds are limited, I'm not opposed to using them when there's other sources. Yeah,
I double checked my state statutes on paying salaries out of the recorder's perpetuation fund. And it limits it to wages paid for maintaining records. So if he's not supposed to do like customer service or like office duties on the funds being paid out of the perpetuation fund. It's only for maintaining the records. So I don't know how you would separate out like not going to the counter to help a customer and only maintaining records.
yeah,
So we'd have to think about how we would work that.
Does it,
right. That's true.
does it delineate out?
So it's only basically, I can only pay a portion of it because he does other things besides maintaining records when he's working.
Has that been followed in the past, like with the part-time help? Have they only helped? with-
Well, part-time, he doesn't necessarily have to answer the phones, and
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
if he's part-time, he's not necessarily answering the phones, like the way the office works right now, the 3 full-time people are the ones that do like the customer service stuff, and they're just indexing and
Your part-time people are, yeah, so it's been more,
it
Use-
works.
yeah. in the
that way.
past. Yeah,
Isn't the
That's a good
bulk
point.
of what recorders do, maintain records?
I mean, we do a lot more than maintain records. We have customers coming in all the time, and we're helping title searchers all day, every day. There's a
Dealing
lot-
with
there's a lot of
jackass
functions of-
attorneys saying, I need this recorded real quick.
Yeah,
good example.
Okay, the bulk of what recorders do are to work with county records.
yeah,
The
a
word is
portion,
main-
yes,
The question is maintain.
yes.
Okay.
So I just, something to think about in it.
Yeah,
that
so
it's-
can you
it's
tell me the
supposed-
wording again? Is it to maintain or
It's at
with this discussion, I lost the
It's supposed to be
wording.
maintaining the records.
Maintaining records,
Yeah,
okay.
it's maintaining the records and managing the documents.
I think of it a
So
lot
it's
like
a portion of it can go towards the wages. Yeah, that's my question. We'd have to figure out how to, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, right. Exactly.
I liken it to like the surveyor's corner section fund, where only certain portion, but that can only be used if we're doing maintenance to the corner sections.
Right, well,
Right,
and that's,
got it. And it's
and
the same
that's
for
very
you.
tied together because that's coming from my fund, so,
can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Okay, it's not an offensive question, so don't be offended. What's a better use for that money in that fund?
It's for maintaining the records and keeping the office. That's what the state statute's
Right.
for. I can't answer that question.
I just wondered,
We
is
just had to
is
follow state
there
statute for it.
process improvement, equipment? I mean, what,
Equipment, maintaining records. So, and I also double checked, I do have some outlay still that I'm gonna have to pay and bringing all those records online. But it's not, I mean, it's probably gonna be like $50,000.
is the, if you use the fund just for the intended purpose,
I
is
also
it
pay for,
balanced?
I also pay for my copier, all my paper. We go through a lot of paper down there. I pay for all of that, all my ink.
Is your
I
balance
just bought a new server. I paid for that.
Right. Will your balance go up or
It
maintain?
goes up. The more documents I do, the more it costs me.
No, I guess I meant the balance in your fund. Is what's coming into the fund in excess of what
I
you
have no
need
idea.
for the
It depends
purpose
on,
of the fund?
it's based on how many documents are recorded. It fluctuates with the real estate market, basically.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the way the section core fund is. I have to rely on her when she does a deed or document. I get so much out of that for the section, perpetuation section corner. But you gotta be, the State Board of Accounts is real picky about that. You can use a portion. So she picks out 25% is gonna be labor, then 75% would have to be made up. Or if you pick out 50%. But you gotta be real careful what your percentage is, how you really use it. If she gets a person in there and they get busy all day long and they can't record, you're using the wrong money. If somebody turns it in, she'll get in trouble for it. So it's a special fund that's been set up it's weird how it works, but that's why I was telling you yesterday, don't count on this. It's no guarantee what our deeds are gonna do. Stuff starts slowing down, it's gonna bottom. I'll tell you right now,
Yeah,
that's
if
gonna.
nobody's recording deeds and mortgages, I have no income into my
And mine
office.
does it, mine goes
And
down
then-
and I gotta stop doing my work. My work goes way down, which I'm doing good work now because everything's up, it's going good. I've done more now with section corners than I've ever done. But that could fall off in 6 months.
Right.
I mean, the president change, that's all it takes, stroke of a pen, they're back down.
That's gonna be true with a
So
lot
it
of
was,
things.
it kind of it was kind of explained to me that at some point the recorder's office was not getting enough budgets, and that's why the state statute was done, because somebody decided that counties weren't paying enough attention to how important the record maintenance was and keeping these records maintained forever, and they didn't want the office to go away, and they didn't want these records to be shoved into a damp basement and ignored. And so that's why the state statute's there, so that that office is protected and all the records are protected.
And how much balance did you say you had in it?
I'm sorry.
How much balance did you say you had? in it?
200 and some $1,000. I don't remember the 242, I think Debbie said yesterday.
Does any other department have a fund that they can use for decorating their office?
What?
Does any other department have funds that they can decorate their office?
I have no idea.
The answer is no.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
That, I don't follow that one either.
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
I said I didn't follow Kenneth's
I
statement.
asked if any other office had a fund that they could remodel or decorate their office, remodel their office, have the funds to be able to do that. It's not you, but it was done.
She could use part of it for maintaining the office, yes.
Well, we're getting semantics. We're talking about managing, maintaining,
I'm just telling you that
and I'm
I separated it my brain
playing
with,
devil's advocate. Because whatever comes out of the general fund is less money for raises for everybody.
okay, we need to follow state statute, Ken, and that's,
And no one's,
Yeah.
I said it wasn't. It wasn't. Why bring it up? Because no other one has that.
I mean, lots of
option.
departments are spending money on things that they probably don't need to. Out of taxpayer money that's not in any fund.
Apparently.
Can I
according to
say
state
something?
Statute.
I think we want to reframe the discussion because it's easy to be, I'm really not
I
trying
was
to
just up here trying
offend
to
you.
explain that I
Yeah.
did research my thing, and I feel like
If
now I'm
we-
being
And we
directed at.
appreciate
My
that.
whole purpose of the conversation is just to use all of the collective funds for the best of the county.
And I
And I don't
understand
have a
that.
predetermined idea of what that is, which is why I was asking you. If the fund is just going to increase over time and there's not another use for it.
There
that's
is
the
use
only-
for it. I'm paying all my copier fees.
Right.
I'm paying 2 part-time employees. I'm paying for all my paper, every ink pen, everything that operates my office is paid out of that fund, every single thing. All my software, I just bought a $25,000 server. All of that comes out of that fund.
I'm sorry, you feel.
She was gracious enough that her old server, she gave it to Jeff Ludd to use as another server that we needed, so we didn't have to spend the money.
Thank you.
Bobby, I'm not attacking her. I'm just,
It was an attack to the office with the.
No,
Decorating
it
the, yes, it was.
It was.
No.
Yes, it was, Kenan.
That was not the intent. But you do have a fund that others don't have, and it's kind of the.
But
and
that's
it's
set
not
up,
you
it was set up
personally.
by the state statute
It's-
for a reason. There's a reason for that fund.
Can I get us back on track?
Yeah.
Please
I
do.
would really like, I believe that those funds that are set aside for any office that might include wages are to be used for minor things, part-time help, scanning documents, those kind of things. That's what she needs to use that money for. A full-time person taking care of the public and taking care of things in any office needs to come out of the general fund. I also believe that the prosecutor's office, probation office, community corrections, those that we heard yesterday that want to have so much money in a different supplemental fund that is completely different, and because they are concerned, that has been a concern in this county for a long time. There's not enough money in the general fund to pay our people. So we've got this money over here. We want to supplement that. Each one of those, and we saw the prosecutor show us 4, 5, 6 employees that he wants to supplement a couple of $1,000s out of a fund that he has so that they are paid appropriately. Everything that we're talking about is because we have not taken care of our employees and paid them appropriately from where they should be. So in my opinion, the recorder's office should have their full-time person in that office. There's a reason for that. She defines the need, not us. I don't want to micromanage what employees do in any department. If a department manager comes to us and says, I need an additional person and this is why, we need to be able to fund that. If a department head mismanages their department's funds or their part of the general fund, then shame on them. They should be voted out or fired, depending. I know not all department heads are elected, and I'm not suggesting anybody is doing that, so please work with me here. It's not our role, in my opinion, to say how many full-time people an individual department needs. We're the fiscal body. We need to decide, can we afford to do that? And I believe in the recorder's case, the answer is yes. And all these others where they're trying to supplement and pay, whether they're legally allowed to do that or not, I don't know. And I don't care to read the statute for each and every one of those funds. But we saw 3 or 4 of them yesterday. I suspect we'll see more. We've got the ability in the general fund, and we've got a report that shows us what we should pay them. So I don't think departments should be able to add people just to add people, but many departments have scaled way back on their people in an attempt to help and have fallen behind and need that help. So that's why I wanted to have the discussion. That's why I feel the way I do. I feel like we should pay them out of the general fund if we can, and I believe we can. And anything else is supplemental based on the funds that the statutes were written for them to have.
And I think a lot of those, let's just call them special funds, were created over time to fill a gap where counties are running into issues with paying employees versus taking care of all the other things that are necessary to keep an office up and running, like records, for instance. You gotta maintain certain things, and we're gonna allow these special funds for special uses. I know that, gosh, in 3 years, I've probably had 6 or 7 separate conversations with Steve Rust about his corner section fund. And, just a question, I think I can use this, but I'm going to check with my contacts at the Board of Accounts or other surveyors to see how they, parse this project out to decide what they can use from that corner section fund. So each time each new use of those funds is a separate conversation in and of itself to make sure it's in compliance with the statute. So I don't think it's a good practice to try to classify someone's work as a percentage is doing X versus Y, front stage, on the phones, maintaining your role in the office with the public, doing that job versus the backstage behind the scenes, maintaining things. I think it makes sense to in those situations, unless a fund is for salaries, to leave those alone. So I think long way or in a long statement, short answer is I think I agree with what Shannon's saying. I understand the impact of that, but it's tough to look at each one of those funds
My intent.
without a direct correlation to what's being paid for salary of the job or, you know.
Unless we're gonna ask every department that has a separate fund to evaluate and research
redefine
and
every
define-
single one of
define How
those.
much of their fund is going to be contributed to the salaries in their office.
And then
I want to be fair, treat everybody the same.
then I would have to argue that if that's the case, that there are gonna have to be certain times and schedules that are dedicated to certain portions of work, and that's just a pain in the ass for anybody to have
Yeah.
to deal with.
And I'm not an attorney, I talk like one sometimes, but I think any
Don't
two
do that.
attorneys could look at those statutes and argue either side of some of those things. And some might be able to come up and justify the dollars that have been spent on things that maybe they shouldn't have. And other attorneys would look at that law and read it completely the way it was
Intended.
We pay lawyers for a reason, right? So.
I always view things from the conservative side, like what's safest is best.
Absolutely, absolutely. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, you're exactly right. What's safe is the best. These folks represent their elected official positions. That's the way I've looked at it the 12 years I've been in here. I will not let this county down and do wrong and spend money where it shouldn't be spent out of that account. That's why I fight for that. I know exactly what that money goes for. She knows exactly what that money goes for. It's called communication. I think we need to get back to the respect for each elected official in this county and treat them like they're elected officials and let them run their departments. If you got questions, let's do it. I'll sit down with any of you. I've asked every one of you to come over to my department, sit down with me, and I'll show you every duty I do every
Turn
day.
the temperature down a little bit.
Well, no, I'm a little ticked off about it because this should have been addressed a long time ago.
May I speak?
The respect is supposed to be there. Everybody needs to respect everybody. It's gotten out of hand.
There's nothing I said was disrespectful.
No, you did. Now that, you can ask for every one of these people. That was.
Well, I know it's taken that way. Everything that I've stood for in the last 5 years is free up the general fund for raises. You've received more raises in the last 5 years since they've done the tax cap. Everything that was brought up yesterday with Lisa, she had that money more than anybody else in a fund that could be used for that purpose. It was to have money for more raises. Everything we did last Thursday was to have more raises because you're underpaid. If that's disrespectful, I'm sorry, Lisa, if that came across that way. You have a fund that no one else has that could be used, which frees up money in the general fund for raises.
It doesn't free up money in the general fund for raises, and I did not use it to decorate my office, and that is what was offensive.
Well, that was your predecessor, and I apologize if it was taken that way. You have a fund that no one else has and an amount that could have been used for mostly that.
Office has, that nobody else has by state statute.
Okay, well, you represent the head of that office, and I'm sorry it's taken personally. I said that yesterday. Don't take it personally. Everyone here has, I apologize. My intent is to give better raises because you're underpaid. And if that's disrespectful, I apologize for that.
I wanted to just,
I know that. I read it in the paper and I do know that. I did know that. That's how she runs her office.
I wanted to just respond to the discussion up here. So I really appreciate, I'm sorry. I really appreciate what Shannon said. I appreciate what Kyle said. And my thought process was that possibly if we had a conversation about it, there were funds, but I can concede that point. My goal is to make the best use of every tax dollar. And that was what I was driving towards doing by talking about if there were going to be excess funds or not. But I can concede that point if there's not. I'm happy to do that. And I respect and appreciate you all. We're elected officials too, trying to do our job the best that we can as well. So I think if we respect each other, I agree that is definitely the best way to go about it. So,
Susan, can I say something real quick?
sure.
As an elected official who sat with 3 judges for a fund like she has, that was misused, not by myself,
that the funds were not used right. We spent 5 years paying that fund back with not one single dollar coming back into that 4D fund to have it paid. So when they come and do that, and if it's not used right, she has to pay it back. And we spent in our county general 4D fund 5 years with no money coming in it because it was misused
Well,
and we had to pay it back.
I definitely don't want anyone to misuse funds, but we had been paying wages out of there previously. So I think it warrants a discussion, and I think it'd be a better discussion if it wasn't so defensive. You can't ask a question and just get an answer without everyone getting defensive. So I apologize. I wish that were different. I don't know how to ask a less defensive question, but I just wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree with everything Susan said. Again, look at the end goal here. We've said over and over and over, we want to get everybody paid better. We know it's absolutely ridiculous how low some people are paid. So we're not trying to divert funds into some weird area. We're literally just trying to take care of our employees. And so as we analyze and ask questions on how to do that, I would just hope that people would give us a little bit of grace and knowing that we respect you, you're elected, so are we. We're just trying to figure it out and do our jobs, so.
Do you,
Yeah, but can we get a consensus
Sorry.
on whether the recorder's additional position can remain in her budget?
yes,
You mean as a general fund?
Yes.
yeah, we need consensus so we can move on.
I am convinced that it should be a yes,
For what?
to be in the general fund. and-
Okay,
and not-
same.
And
We'll
not
move
a
it to the general
perpetuation
fund.
fund.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
I agree as well. So please leave it in the budget.
Though I'm not suggesting that the probation wages in that fund should
We need,
not.
we need to have a
That's
discussion
a
about.
significant hit to the general fund, and that fund is for wages. So
Agreed,
I think
and-
that's a different conversation.
I think we need to have a discussion about moving entire positions into those funds as opposed to paying partial. in
That would be
both.
cleaner.
That would be much cleaner, and I think,
And it's been done, and not, with that, I'm not sure this is fair.
to handle a single individual
If you're
person.
talking about the one for Susan and then supplement their wages from.
She said she had about 600,000 balance.
Oh, I'm not.
Oh, you're thinking like, yeah,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
we need to
right,
look
agreed.
at that in
Yeah.
general.
Because
And-
Mike's only has
Yeah.
enough for his, that's. his-
And those positions are already in the general fund. He was just offering to take the
The raise
raise from
part.
there, which we were already planning to cover in the general fund.
That being said, his raises that he put in that other fund, he didn't allow for social security or anything to be taken out of it. And every year they try to pay someone out of it. And then I'm having to call him, tell him, hey, you don't have social security. I need transfer. And
Can we make sure they get a social security line in there?
There's
Well,
another additional
it'd be
appropriation.
additional because he didn't
Agreed.
have it
I
in
think
there.
we're gonna have a budget mess by the time we're all done, and that's the last item on this list, wherever I put the damn thing, is how can we make that happen next year? And we're gonna talk about, I think, overall wage philosophy here next. But if we make significant wage changes, the budget that's been submitted to the state will be blown up, which means we will have to probably take away a large something with the intent of putting it back in January. That's what you and I kind of discussed yesterday. So depending on how much of a wage change we make, the budget gets blown up. Because we can't make it go up, we can only make it go down. So if you guys remember last year, we removed a bunch of things out of the jail lit with every intention of putting them back so that we could have a budget that was sufficient based on what we turned in. So keep that in mind as we discuss wages, because wage changes will definitely change the budget. If we follow some sort of sense of what Wagner Irwin Shealy has given us, we will exceed the budget that was turned in to the state. So we'll have to make some changes with every intent and purpose of putting dollars back where they belong after the first of the year.
And I'm as Susan's liaison, I'm gonna speak up, though there's $600,000 there, you know, That's 2 years if she doesn't get grants, which is a nice cushion. But at the same time, I joke with her, it's like you spend 6 months of the year applying for and writing all these grants, and you spend the other 6 months of the year praying that you get them. So while I think there might be some room for an additional employee or something like that, I don't think we can just say, okay, we're just, if you want to give your employees raises above what their state mandated minimum is, that you have to take it from those funds. I don't think that's fair to approach it that way either.
You know, grants are not guaranteed.
Because
In
grants are
most
not
cases.
guaranteed.
She has a history of getting it, but that's not guaranteed.
Yeah, but she, retirement is probably not too far away from her. And what if that falls off in a couple of years? And now all of a sudden we're left with, okay, there's a $300,000 hit to the budget because we don't have those coming in this year.
Yeah, she
So-
said that she's 40 years. That's usually near retirement, 40 years in a job.
Used to get steady amount, and now it's dropping in amount every year. So when people applying from elections.
And I think this year was a anomaly. I think she did get a little bit more in the JRAC grant, but that could be just because there was more funding, or because the county is taking larger steps and working through that in a much more detail-oriented fashion. So maybe that's the state rewarding the county for the work that's going on there as well. I have no idea. It's all
You're
speculation. but-
reaching for your mic. Mine's taped. Are we, any loose ends? Are we ready to talk about the larger?
Did you want to finish that conversation, or are you just putting it out?
I'm just
for
putting it
later?
out there as something that before as a council, we would try to make any decision. She needs to be here to discuss that thoroughly again. That's what I'm saying.
On probation?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
The prosecutor, because they're the ones paying out something for boosting. They do.
Yeah, basically, community correction does as well, yes.
We picked up their raises last year because they didn't have grant money for it, but in general, yeah.
In community corrections, it sure will, yeah.
Correct.
And she was here with the judge and Susan yesterday, and we had that wider conversation between
Right.
us three.
And that group, based on Wagner and Shealy's report, is more than 30% under where their midpoint is. And the reason I suppose that is because that's just what the
The grant
grant
allowed.
had funded. So I would include them
Well,
with,
if you don't know, community corrections, and you would have to look at it deeper, is allowable for public safety lit.
Mhm.
So you might want to look at that if public safety lit can help, since we've increased public safety tax, that community corrections can be used for public safety lit
sure.
as well.
I would include them as the employees that we need to pay appropriately, so we need to make way
And I
to
think the goal is to pay
ensure they're all paid.
everybody appropriately, which they have not been in most cases. Is that a good segue to talk about wages?
Sure.
Of what we can talk about wages, given what Addie asked?
I'll present my thoughts and we'll kind of go from there. And there's some nuances to it. My thoughts are, we got a Wagner-Irwin Shealy report that tells us exactly what it will cost to get all employees to their midpoint. It shows us what it'll cost to get them to 10% below midpoint. And I believe it has been said in public meetings that we would at least like to try to strive to get everybody to 95% of their midpoint. And that's where I believe our employees could be, should be. Looking at the group of comparables, the counties and the organizations that we are compared to, some are larger than us, population-wise, some are larger than us income-wise, some are smaller than us, and some are in both categories, population and income. So what we see from the Wagner-Irwin Shealy report is averages, and nobody's average. And when anybody changes, those averages change. So our community, in my opinion, falls on the lower side of the population of our comparables and on the lower side of our comparables related to income. That's why I feel that 95% is a good place to strive to be. Everybody would like to be at midpoint. If we were swimming in income, I would like to get everybody to midpoint, but I don't think we are. So what I would like to see happen is every employee, upon approval and acceptance of an ordinance that would say such things, to get every employee to 95% of their midpoint this year, immediately before the beginning of the year. I would like to see that happen. And then when we get, the reason I want to see that happen is because all the numbers we have in the Wagner-Irwin-Shealy report are 2024 numbers, not 2025 numbers. I would like to receive an updated report, not the full report that we just received, but the updated numbers that we always get from Wagner-Irwin-Shealy in the spring, which is how we used to do that. And when that report was received, Job Classification Committee would look at that. They would also then entertain any changes to personnel that department heads have brought to them and solicit Wagner-Irwin-Shealy to classify them and bring recommendations to the council in the spring upon completion of that. At which point, I think we should then strive to get all employees again to 95%. And I would suggest we do that repeatedly year after year
In the spring,
in the spring.
or as soon as we get an
Which
updated
means
report.
raises would not happen January 1 for the overwhelming majority of employees. We would have to budget a significant dollar amount into each individual department's fund, I think is how the auditor would like to handle that, so that they can use those funds to make those wage changes happen based upon a new ordinance being approved. If we choose not to do that, then we need to put a large lump sum for raises and reclassification so that we have it budgeted. And that could be one item that we can put in there this year that we do not allocate in this budget, but we added as a additional appropriation in January. We need to commit to doing that. The only exception to the rule is elected officials have to be paid the exact same January 1 as they are December 30. So we cannot adjust the elected officials' salaries mid-year. They will have to be done January 1. And I would suggest that because of that, we strive to include in the budget for 2025 that elected officials' wages be changed to 100% of the midpoint. And I'm gonna say I would exclude council. I mean, we're already there, but I don't suggest I don't think the council
Well,
needs to have any adjustment.
I agree. And I've got-
Elected official department heads, I believe that we should budget to get them to 100% of their midpoint for the 2024 numbers. Keeping in mind that we're going to get a 100% to the midpoint in spring of 2025, but they will not be able to receive that until the following year. That'll give them 4 months at their previous year's salary, or it'll give them 12 months at their full salary, but 4 months at where everybody else could be, and then 8 months roughly where they're below what the 2025 midpoint is. Say that again.
Losing some pay, that, like they should have got it raised, but if their raise is delayed, I mean, elected officials, then
They'll get more than everybody else on January 1. Because it'll be based on 100% of the midpoint, not 95% of the midpoint.
It's as if the elected officials are being increased earlier because they can't be increased in April.
That's
And
probably,
because we don't have the exact number that they could be increased to for 2025, they would be increased to 100% of the previous years. And
We're
that's
trying
5%
to
more.
shoot for equal, but elected officials are not going to
It's
be
different.
shorted.
How's that affect the chief deputy?
Chief deputies would still, chief deputies do not have to be 80% of, that's been the general rule of thumb. And Joel has, an ordinance that he's looking at, and he said exactly that. Chief deputies don't have to be. Could we take chief deputies to 95% of their midpoint? We could.
I was simply going to say that currently the average for chief deputies is 83%. Some are 81, some are 84, but
We
the
can,
average.
we can define what that should be. If we want chief deputies to continuously be dependent on what the elected officials are paid, then they would need to be updated and changed in January as well and maintained. I'm open either way. If chief deputies are best served by changing them to 95% at the same time as everybody else,
95% of midpoint.
95% of
Not
midpoint.
95% of the elected official.
Midpoint.
95% of midpoint as defined in the Wagner and Shealy report. We can look at more specifics as to who gets paid what after Monday. But I will tell you that it's a very small difference. That's my thoughts. And then we're actually giving more sooner in January 1 because we don't know what it will be until April. I'm trying to develop some kind of guidelines for job classification committee to strive for so that our employees know where we want to be instead of looking at everybody getting a flat percentage raise when this group's further behind than that group and this group is that and this is this, and we're talking about different percentage raises for everybody. If we treat everybody the same, get them to 95% of the midpoint, I think that's fair for our county. I think that's fair to the employees. The dollar amount is roughly $1.2 million impact to the budget in various accounts. That's total. We will have to determine how much of that is going to hit the general fund, how much will hit public safety, and how much will hit the other 4 departments that we've been discussing this morning. But it treats everybody fairly. That's what I would like to pursue as a target, a goal to get things done.
This report will be available to everybody on Monday and you'll be able to look at your departments. But as department heads, I think there's an advantage to doing the change immediately. For one, because it's money that these people have earned and we have it available, but also because people are going to be getting a wide range. It's not really a raise, it's a market adjustment, and companies do this at times too. So one employee may get 7,000, one employee may get 2,000. Some people will get nothing. So these are not mid-year cost of living adjustments as much as it's a market adjustment. We are reevaluating all the wages and correcting them in a way that we think is appropriate. And then people can expect more of a cost of living increase that would keep them at that 95%. So once you have the full report in front of you, it's actually really interesting to look at to see who is off in which area. But the intent is to correct everyone to the 95% and keep them there and have that set the direction for the council. The complication of elected officials not being able to be adjusted in April is unfortunate. And I think Shannon's suggestion about doing it is one good way to do it. You can move them higher, but it'll be the previous year. It's not perfect, but it's close. So if there's another good suggestion, we can entertain that also. But that's one way to just keep it clean.
I think the 1.2 million is what's been calculated to achieve what Shannon is recommending. That's twice of what any other year on record, but the LITs will allow that to happen. This research that they've done is so comprehensive. And we've said no, what you were on the job classification 4 whatever years ago, you suggested it. We
Yeah.
said, we don't have money for that.
Yeah, can I mention that real quick? In the 2016, that's exactly what I suggested, is having all positions reevaluated. And some of these had been small categories. Every job description was evaluated on criteria and assigned points. And then the points were dropped into a job classification. We have reevaluated all the classifications. They've added classifications. Sometimes, we've gone from 4 different categories in a classification to 5. And different places throughout there, that is exactly what needed to be happening back in 2016, so that we could get people into the classification they needed to be, and the comparables would then be accurate for their comparables. When we have all the polls thrown together, everybody got the same raise, everybody got the same pay, and all the comparables were thrown together, which made a big mess. So we have the report, I'm happy to say, and I was nervous about this. The Wagner and Shealy report produced the results that I hoped and thought that it would produce, and it separated categories and moved them and added categories so that we could include all of our employees with the comparables that they should be compared to, so their salaries are more accurate. I believe they achieved that goal. You guys will get to see
Yeah.
Addie present that on Monday, so please.
Can I express my concern?
Sure.
And that's my office. And everybody deserves a raise. They deserve it this year. My concern is, how is my office going to do this? Every single person's going to get a different raise 9 times out of 10. You have your categories. So is someone going to go through each list and give it to us? Because when the mistake's made that we give someone the wrong salary, then it's our fault, not anybody else's. And my concern is going mid-year, every year and doing this, it's kind of hard for our staff. And I don't mean that to be mean to anybody out there, but when we put that salary in wrong, they're going to come after us, not you guys. And that's my concern. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time.
Mid-year is
It's-
gonna be tax time. It's gonna be, it's a busy time.
Yeah, so that's where my concern is when we're always doing a mid-year, that whoever takes in after me, they're gonna inherit it as well, and they're gonna understand it's not easy. And that's where my concern is. And like I said, I don't mean that bad to anybody out there, because they deserve the raises. But when you're gonna do one in September, and then we're gonna turn around and do another one in April,
Just
That's-
this year. I mean, this
Just
would be
that-
the only year.
That's a one-time thing. It won't happen twice in the same year. It'll be April next year, and then it'll be April the following year.
Once a year, every April.
Once a year.
Just this year
It'll be
because
the
we're
same
doing an
amount of work.
immediate.
I understand
But-
timing,
but, okay.
you know what I mean?
Is
It-
there a better time of year? I mean, is it better to wait?
I don't
Mm.
know if it's the same this year. For this year, he said.
Yeah, I gotta go.
No, we were
No,
saying
we'll
we
get everybody
keep
to
everyone.
95.
Trying to talk loud enough and also not kill everybody.
I don't think you, in April or May, well, really, February, March, April, May, I don't think you realize how busy we are with taxes. It's going to be a lot of paperwork, especially for the auditor. That's our busiest time. We,
Yeah. I've
yeah.
gone into the
Completely
treasurer's office.
understand.
It's worse than
I-
that.
I was trying to get raises into the hands of the people as quickly as I can.
And
If
I
June
understand
1st
that.
works better, I'm not,
I understand that. I think at budget time is the best time to do it because then we,
so every September?
Thanks for coming.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
Okay, so I like the idea of getting everybody bumped as soon as possible, but I think it's very, very difficult from a budgeting perspective to try to figure out how to do this and a balancing act in the middle of the year on a report. How do you know what you don't know? So I think it would be cleaner to budget a cost of living raise, and then when you get the report, settle in the budget cycle, and then you can update everybody in January again with an additional cost of living plus any adjustments you have to make at that time.
Twice a year?
No, just once a year. So do it right now, give everybody the raise, then in January, budget 2, 3, 4, 5%, whatever you consider a good cost of living budget increase. And then next year, get the report, do the evaluation at budget cycle, and then adjust as needed and include an additional
10 cents.
cost of living to accommodate for the next year.
So
So that
everyone,
way you're only doing it once a year at budget cycle. When we can calculate the budget, it's going to be done all together at the same time that the auditor's office has to enter everything. It's going to be done at the same time that each department head turns in their 3-4% cost of living increase. And there's no additional appropriations, there's no transfers, there's no trying to, because Debbie's in the middle of audits. I mean, Debbie, how many audits do you do in a year now? 4, 5, 6, 7? I mean, it's insane. You've got Form 11s going out in the assessor's office. You've got the tax collections being done in the treasurer's office. And,
So Chad,
it's
if
a
I-
crazy time in the spring. So I think it would be tough to try to halt everything. So what I'm saying is give everybody this adjustment today, make this fix. And then give everybody a cost of living increase for 2025. With a reasonable one, 3, 4, 5%, whatever you guys land on. And then next year's budget, reevaluate and adjust as needed to market value. And then still include that additional small cost of living. So that way we don't get so far off track like has been done, because this county went years without giving any cost
Right.
of living raise. And that's why they're at 80% of market value,
Right.
because they gave them extra, time or whatever. So that's just my
are you
thoughts.
saying adjust with the cost of living now or in January?
So I'm saying give them the raise immediately if you're going
Right?
to do
And then
that.
what's happening in January?
And then in January, give them a cost of living increase.
So you're saying 2 still, but January instead of
January is
April?
just a cost of living. Today is the adjustment. Today is the
Right.
fix, or not today,
But we
but you know what I'm
set
saying.
Whenever we do it.
Immediately the fix, January, the cost of living, and then every budget cycle, you can decide if a fix needs to be done the next January and give that additional cost of living. The elected officials will have to get it January 1st. We didn't screw them, the state legislature did. The state legislature did, because you can't change Debbie's salary at this point.
That's probably why it's always been January 1st for everybody. That and the other reasons you gave. It,
So it's only for a few months and we're trying to get people paid as soon as possible. I understand that,
Well, I will make a, can I make a thought here and throw this out? Boy, this thing is terribly echoey. I know for certain that they passed an availability for a stipend for Debbie and Jenny. I'm not sure that the state legislature passed a stipend availability for the auditor's office and the clerk's office. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you can't also give the other elected officials a stipend. We've given bonuses before. So if that is the issue, I don't see any reason that the council could not decide to give the elected officials a bonus, if
Yeah,
you will, a
it'd be called a-
stipend, a
it'd be a
bonus, whatever
stipend.
you want to call it,
it's a
as
stipend.
a solution to adjust it, because that's not a salary. That doesn't alter their salary. And that would just be an additional, and I'm fairly certain, I'm not an expert, but I could call Lori Rogers and I'm pretty sure that she'd say that that's a possibility that the county has the ability to do.
I
Does
think
that sound
you're right.
reasonable, Debbie? I know we've given bonuses
We've done it
before
before.
and gotten away with it, so I
Chad,
was sitting on the council.
appreciate your thoughts. We've got 4 people on their mics up here. And good practice for January. All 4 of you, all 4 of us have a finger on the mic. Who wants to go first? Ladies first?
Sure, that's fine with me.
Go ahead, Susan. You were the first one with the red on your mic.
Oh, mine's just taped down, so I can try to be heard better. I don't have anything that I need to say right now.
If we were going to look at
What's that?
any kind of an adjustment for cost of living, we would have to look at what,
Right. it's
what
been-
metric do we use? I know like Social Security releases their estimated cost of living adjustments.
It's been
Those are never
averaging-
much, but we would have to have some standard practice that we would use to calculate what that would be.
Last 4 years, it's been averaging, according to AIC and Wagner, would show you about 4.5%. Some years it's 4, some it's 5. We could say 4.5 and we'd be within a half a
Right.
percent.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting the social security COLA stuff. I was just saying whatever we establish, that needs to be
So,
kind of our baseline going forward, if that was the route we went.
okay.
So what about doing raises during budget set, well, you know, setting them during budget, but doing 96% or something, because they're always going to be working a year. Yeah, I mean, Shannon's intent and what he and I have talked about is adjusting as quickly as possible. And then the goal of doing it in April is that then people are working at that 95% of the current year. Otherwise, they're working at 95% of the previous year, which was just not our intent, but we don't want to create workload that can't be absorbed either. So,
Well, I think we need to be cognizant of the workload. When you had that discussion, I said, why are we not doing it in January? And you made the legitimate case. We're so far behind and not competitive. If we've got the money, which we do, because we have a balance in the general fund, we will have money with the lits that were increased. I understood why you wanted to make that mid-year correction, but I think we need to balance both. I've heard good reasons for January 1st. We have nothing to do with the state legislature with elected officials, but we were hoping that 90% of everybody else in the county that's underpaid could get that made up a little bit as soon as possible, as soon as we were able. What was not discussed is probably the workload on the assessors and the treasurer and the auditors department. And
yeah, so
if
it's,
we can find a happy medium between those balance, I think we should try.
We appreciate the workload. We really do. I'll also say that, Chad, I like your recommendation to a point. My concern is that when we make this change to, if we make this change to 95%, and we've got some data here in front of us, Kenan has put together, and I spoke with Addie about this, in many cases, Henry County's wage for individuals is the lowest in the comparable category. And that's a result of these years and years of being where we've been. So if we make this change and make this 95% happen this year, that gets everybody caught up, but that also blows what the average looks like next year to some extent. And that's my concern with, and I think 3 or 4 years out from now, yeah, I'm hoping 3 or 4 years out from now, we can say a 3% cost of living raise across the board should keep everybody pretty darn close. I like that. My concern is in the next 2 or 3 years, how those averages are going to change, because some other counties are looking at making changes as well.
They
And
are.
how much of a change they make. My concern is that we get everybody to 95%, we budget for a 3% raise, and then the 95% actually for each one jumps, you know, up to 10% or whatever that is. I'm trying to treat everybody fairly and keep everybody as close as we can to their midpoint, and giving a flat raise of 3% or 4% or 5% to everybody doesn't accomplish that until we stabilize what that average looks like.
And that's what we've done historically in the past, except 2 years. We actually used Wagner when Sheila and those that got 30% below market got a higher raise than those that were 10%. But this is kind of what Wagner and Sheila are doing it. They're doing it for us, though. We're not picking winners and losers. Like I said, I thought we were going to make gains with these other 8 counties that are 40 to 50%, but we're still at 22 out of 53 being the lowest of 8 counties reporting. And that's exactly where we were in 2022. So we're not making gains
So
because other counties are
we
increasing.
tried, and what we've tried has not worked, which
Well,
is why I would like to try a
well,
different approach.
Right, and our goal was to get within 10% because we had people between 20 and 33% below market. And we thought we can't do this overnight, so our goal was to get 10% below market, which we've been shooting for, but it's a moving target and other counties are moving along with us. We're not making net gains. You're still average about 15% below the other counties.
yeah, wage inflation made it impossible for our slow and steady approach to work, which is why we were willing to do the tax increase we did, because it's important to us to fix employee wages. We wanted to do without raising taxes. We couldn't do it. So we raised taxes. We want to fix them. We just need to figure out a method of doing it that works for our employees.
Well, and that was the primary reason
Our
for the
department
tax
heads.
increase.
Right.
I mean, it was because
Yeah.
we were seeing ahead of time, about the day we had that hearing last year, we got the Wagner Irwin Shealy report, and it was depressing. We were not making the gains we thought we were making in retrospect to counties similar to ours. There are only, you mentioned counties, there are 4 counties again that actually have an assessed valuation of the 14 below ours. So we're in the lowest third of those 14 counties. 10 counties have a much higher assessed valuation. We're compared with Wayne, we're compared with Shelby, we're compared with Hancock, we're compared with Madison, we're compared with Delaware. We don't hold a candle with what their tax base. We were pretty good when we had
So if we.
Metaldyne and Chrysler and all those. We were, and before the tax caps, it all happened about the same decade.
I know.
Our
So-
revenues have gone way down.
Yeah, the problem we lived through. So now we're trying to live through the solution.
And I think we're getting there.
We could say employees are gonna work at 95% of the previous year. And that fixes this timing issue. So you guys can do wage adjustments at budget. It pays our employees a little bit less than what we were targeting, but it fixes the timing issue of workload.
Well, in the past, we always, when we got something in July, it said this is the market rate for the following year. I think what we got this past week is the market rate currently, not for January through December of 2025. It's as of today, we have today's numbers.
But if we'll get another report in April and it will be 2025 numbers, but we won't modify wages until the end of 2025. So people will work through 2026 on 2025 wages if we do it that way.
It comes down to the mid-year adjustment that Shannon was
Can-
talking about.
Can I ask a question? So you will say, if you don't do it till January, so you're gonna save the money this year that will roll over to next year that you would give the raises. Why can't you just do January at 100% instead of 95%?
That is more expensive.
But then you wouldn't be doing the mid-year.
You
one.
wouldn't do the mid-year, so you're gonna
It would
have
need to
that money
probably be
left.
97. Okay, well,
It-
maybe I don't
I get
understand
what
what you're
you're
saying. I
saying,
think it's
and-
gonna be more expensive.
And that would probably work year 1 and in year 2. But in my opinion, our target based on our size and our income needs to be below what that external midpoint should be. And then just explained where we are on assessed value and all those things. I was trying to get us to stabilize at that 95% sooner. That's what I was trying to do. Setting it at 100% and moving forward, I think I'm not opposed to that either, and that is up for discussion
But
for
we have
sure.
10
If-
counties that to compare us with that are
So
much
if we
higher,
want
much
to
more
discuss
revenues than we have.
97% or
more.
98% or whatever that is, I'm not opposed. I'm trying to take care of our employees in a way that is sustainable, that is repeatable, and then levels out over time. And you're going to want to know where you're going to get the money from, right, Angela? Oh, okay, go ahead.
My question though is, and I call back to the late, didn't know that I needed, so those wages, are those including what's the?
What?
Can you
No.
come to the mic because
Oh, I hear your question. The
Please.
question is, do those wages include longevity?
Right,
The
because
answer is no. We are
So-
comparing base wages only.
base wages and not, and so.
Longevity is an additional.
Okay, but that is still part of the benefit package.
Sure.
And so when I look at my employees, and I don't know what the rest of them do, but I look at them, if you're making $50,000 and you've been here 25 years, you're making $52,500 because you get that at the end of the year. That is your annual wage, and that's what you need to know.
That is a benefit and it's added to their wages. Agreed.
And I think that other counties have longevity also, which was not included in these
we-
numbers.
Okay, that was
We
my
have
other question.
specifically discussed with Wagner and Shealy,
Wagner.
longevity and matrix pay. And because they were giving us mixed signals in the past about whether or not the comparables included those things or
And
not.
so they did not.
They excluded all longevity and
So
all.
we're
all make-
comparing
Apples to
kumquats
apples
to
completely.
coconuts.
Well, we
It's
were in
not the
past.
same
No,
thing.
No, if you've got two individuals in the same job classification and their base wage is $50,000,
Right?
the one that's been here the long time, the 20 years, should be paid more. And that's
Right.
why we have longevity. So you.
So
they
that
can
evens that
consider
out.
That equals that out. So these are base wages only. And we have handled tenure, people being here a longer period of time by increasing the longevity.
Okay,
Yes.
and so when we're comparing all of us to the deputies then, and their
No.
matrix pay,
You're
is
No.
matrix
Matrix is
longevity?
not included in their pay either. They have professional pay as well, and we need to look, we'll work through the sheriff's budget and what their wages look like after the Wagner-Erwin-Shealy report. And we're happy to work through it with everybody. The sheriff's is more complex, as you just mentioned.
And I understand that, but we've got
So your employees' wages and their classifications were compared to employees in similar roles in all of the 18 or 19 counties and government units that we compared to. That's
Right.
what it was.
And it was
And-
base
and that was
wages
done
for
that way.
comparable jobs.
Done that way
Comparable,
for
okay.
every individual job classification.
So it's possible
it's
that in
not.
another county, if longevity is different, then that would change someone's overall compensation. But that is, the amount of longevity we're paying for tenure is one choice, but all base wages are being compared for different job positions.
Okay,
The
That is-
report is very, we wish we could show everyone the report while we talk about, we've been asked not to do that, which makes it awkward. It is a fascinating and thorough report, and nothing on it, when you scroll through, you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. It is a very thorough report, and it is not, it's not comparing separate things like you talked about. They've been all base wages being compared.
okay.
And we
baby.
chose last year to increase longevity because not all counties provide longevity. Some don't do anything. Some counties have,
Oh,
I have I'm gonna make things up. I've got actually a document that shows it, but a COMMOT 1
Mhm.
with 0 to 5 years of experience makes this. A
Well,
COMMOT
that's what the
1
state does.
with 5 to 10 makes this. A COMMOT 1 with 20 to 30 makes it. So they separate the COMMOT 1s by adding a level of
Of
experience factor.
experience.
Some
or
counties do
degree.
that.
We
Yeah,
chose
do they?
to, because we already had a longevity in place, we chose to just increase that amount to make it more meaningful and comparable to what we were seeing. So we were very specific with Wagner-Erwin-Shealy to exclude all longevity pay and
Okay.
just give us base wages. We've already solved the longevity issue,
Longevity
how we're
issue.
going to take care of it.
And it
Okay.
was a
Makes
mixed
sense.
bag in the past, and Addie admitted it. It wasn't consistent from year to year. It is, what we have here is consistent.
Okay.
It's a base
Well, I know that
matrix
in the
without
beginning.
longevity with, it's all the same.
The
now.
beginning, we weren't sure, and so I
Yes, we
apologize.
saw
for
mixed
not
numbers in the
reporting.
past, for sure, and we made sure that that didn't happen again.
Okay,
Mhm.
and then just something to throw out there, since we're just throwing things at the wall and see what sticks, but if you're talking about professional development and things like that, I know my department is particular and different, but I'm thinking about, our GIS specialists or, our highway department individuals who had to have the CDL and those types of things. That's a couple $1,000 class that a lot of those individuals pay out of their pocket, or degrees that they're having. And so although, thankful for the longevity, but it's apparent that we have another department that also takes into consideration all those other things that we just talked about. And I think at some point, what might be a tool for us is to look at professional development,
Completely
in
agree.
addition to the longevity.
Specialty pay of some
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be discussed and addressed in the personnel handbook discussion, where a lot of
Do
these.
we have
other-
a start date for that?
We do not yet, but I think it needs to happen soon, and I've discussed that with Wagner-Erwin-Shealy. They are willing and have that, they're the ones that developed that handbook.
Okay.
Stephanie has a whole list of updates and changes. So, and Stephanie was going to start making those changes for review
For review? Okay,
by Wagner-Erwin-Shealy so that we can do that. So
thank you.
we
Didn't
had
mean to
several
hijack that.
meetings last year about providing input from department heads on what changes could be made. But yes, specialty pay is one of those things that we could consider in the future. for
I'm
sure.
hoping they can meet soon after, like this fall, and not wait till the spring, but then the spring thereafter.
That's our payroll.
I was gonna make, my other suggestion to, the long suggestion you made, which is well thought out, was there are about 6 positions that are at market. And I would strongly suggest, I don't say this because of the council, I'll explain what's happened to the council market rate over the last 5 years. That no one gets a decrease.
Agreed. Anybody who is making above that 95%, I have no interest in taking dollars away from anyone. I would suggest that they remain where they are until that 95% catches up to them. So,
I certainly
We-
can.
please, Betsy, you've been very quiet. Please share your.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. I concur. We don't want to penalize anybody for making positive changes in other areas, so.
These are mostly positions we didn't know what to do with, and we
Created
created
an SO.
SOs.
Yep.
And a lot of them are well paid, and Wagner Irwin Shealy report confirms that they're well paid. On the subject of the county council, in 2020, the market was 12,000 and something. In 2022, it was 11,000 and something. This is from Wagner Irwin Shealy. And this year, it's 10,000 and something. It is the only out of the 52 positions that have gone down over the last 6 years, according to Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy.
Council members foregoing increases when they do others, yeah.
And she actually has broken down the counties on the elected officials. And every county is, all 14 counties that are listed, all the elected officials are within about 15% high or low of the market. Fayette County is less than 1/2 of the market. That brings the county council down. If you take Fayette County out, which is 1/2, everybody else is within 15% of market. Every county, every position. You take Fayette County out and we're actually below market. They're such an
So-
outlier. They must not like the county.
Where can we
Council.
end this conversation? I don't think we have a
Right now?
resolution yet, and,
Because she's up at 10:30. What do you want to do?
well, I
You
was
made a
just
long
gonna
Suggestion.
do, okay.
Would it make sense, and I'm gonna go out on a limb, I guess, maybe our best case scenario is to not shoot at 95%, shoot at 97% of the previous year and just keep raises happening on January 1. That does not get anybody an immediate pay increase, but it solves the problem of getting to closer to where we need to be. And it actually would reduce the amount, in my opinion, of whatever that fluctuation is over the next couple of years.
Are you
So,
talking about not doing the immediate increase?
Yeah, forego the immediate increase in September, shoot for 97% January 1, and with that as a target moving forward to every January 1.
Well, that obviously will cost more than 1.2 million, but we start getting the revenues from the lit, so that should not be a problem.
Well, it increases the 1.2 million, but
By a couple of $100,000.
by a couple 100,000, but it's gonna slow the increase, if I
Right.
understand.
Well,
what
as the
Correct.
Shannon's
monies do
saying.
come in, the decisions made last
It'll-
Thursday, we'll have the money to cover that extra 200,000 with no
And the
problem.
amount that we would need to budget in our 2025 budget to try to guess at where that 95% would be next year goes away. That problem goes away.
I like that.
Okay, so
So-
97% one time.
How do you feel about it, Betsy?
I think it sounds great.
Kyle?
I think it's worth consideration. Yeah.
It'll be about 1.4 million, but we'll have the money.
And that keeps the work in the same time frame. Any other department heads or anybody else want to share thoughts or opinions? throw anything at me, I'm happy to try and catch.
I was hoping to do the immediate increase. I think there's benefit in doing it now, but
Ideally, I agree with you.
I do too.
We
Well,
could, we could technically make it happen at the end of the year. It's just at, or immediately go to 95 and go to 97.
at the end of the year,
Or,
and stay at 97
or we
every
can just
year.
do it once at 97% immediately, but that then just keeps everybody's wages at where they are.
Then Debbie,
until
they don't have to do
December.
it at the end of the year then. It's 97 now and then 97 again next year.
Would that be painful for you guys if we went to 97? Immediately, September, and then no change till January. You guys, from a workload standpoint, that works for you guys?
It would be better that way than.
The only ones that couldn't get that change would be elected officials, but you'd get it in January. So you're 4 months out.
And then we keep elected officials the same then. So we're not making, if everyone goes January, then we don't
97%
have
for
that
everybody
problem issue.
across the
So it's
board.
just 97.
And I think we should ask Joel if we wanted to, if we could consider elected officials that don't have a stipend or anything
To
written by
give them an
statute.
additional.
To see if they can, if it can be attached to like a longevity or something like that, because longevity, I think, is excluded from technically what a salary is under the statute. Because you can't change a salary, but longevity is
It's in a
something
different
different.
line item.
Awarding for
But I still-
certifications,
does
educational
longevity count
advancements,
for-
those types of things are different.
Yeah, I think
if I
it's still
recall.
included as wages, but it is different from a taxable standpoint and a retirement standpoint. It's still considered wages. But could we give them something
That's what I'm saying. We need to explore
to
what we
make up
can
for
give
that
them.
difference between now and the end of the year?
Yeah. Joel,
Yes,
I
Joel
like
says
that.
it has to be called a stipend and not a bonus for tax reasons, but same
Right.
thing. We did
right.
that.
I'm
in
pretty confident
2019.
that we can do that, but
Yeah.
like you say, to check. So 97% now, it holds until 2026, January. And possibly elected officials will get a stipend to make up the difference if it's allowable. And if not, they'll have to wait till January to get their 97%.
And I would suggest we make chief deputies 97% of what their elected official salary will be in January.
Wait, you're
So you'll
talking
make
97% of market, not of their base salary. Because right now it's 83%. You're talking about the. Wagner Irwin Shield.
97% of what their calculation would be
The
in
same percentage
January.
raise, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that way we don't have to mess with chief deputies in the spring. That treats everybody the same.
Yeah, so you're saying they'll just be closer to the elected official's wage for 4 months until, yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, for just this year, then in
right.
2026, it all. is
So
the same.
to clarify, you're saying you're gonna give them a raise this year?
Yes,
Yes,
for a few months, yeah.
for a few months.
September.
September.
We're
through
trying to
the
target
year.
September 1, yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing if you're in the general fund.
That was just my comment. We're gonna have to go back and look.
We'll have to do additional
Park.
somehow for
The
those
park,
four departments.
me, the highway,
I
and
don't know.
whoever the mysterious fourth piece
911.
of the pie is.
Yeah.
It may
That's a discussion
perhaps
we had a year
for,
ago.
Because
Perhaps
we're
we
need to look
budgeted
at
to the
those.
penny.
Understood.
Those four departments, we need to consider.
we could consider if we fund that from the general fund for the
And if
last
we-
4 months.
Yes, we could move individuals to the
Lisa?
general fund if we needed to.
What about part-time or hourly people? Are we increasing their wages?
We
Not
haven't
all.
gotten there yet, but yes.
Right now, they're 15 and it's up to the department
Yeah.
head whether they. do
This
that.
Swiss report has part-time information
It does. and
when
A
when there are
separate report.
full-time positions that are comparable. Am I
yes,
right?
Exactly.
That's what I
So
saw.
a
Okay.
part-time position that's doing the same work as a full-time position, Wagner and Shealy's recommendation is to pay them the calculated hourly wage of that position.
So the difference whether they just aren't getting benefits, but they'd be paid at the same wage.
And that could make a huge difference because right
Yeah.
now it's $15 and it could be 20, 22, $23 an hour. That's going to be significant.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it looks like.
According to the recommendation of Wagner and Shealy, if they're doing comparable work, yes.
If you had someone that doesn't have a comparable full-time position, they may not be on this report is my,
Correct.
yeah. And so then it's another conversation. Monday morning, I think
Yeah.
they're
Yes, we
supposed to
did,
be
yeah.
released.
which means I got work to do to change that 95 to
She
97.
asked not to because she said there's a lot of information and footnotes and Q and A. We use it.
It's income taxes,
Yeah,
right? The income taxes are, yes, it's not property taxes, it's income
Right.
taxes.
correct. No change to property taxes.
Property
No.
taxes were not
Yeah.
affected.
There's, there's three separate income taxes that have been,
Right. And that's pretty much set by the state. We don't have any say on the property tax rate,
they are, yeah.
and they're limited by 4%, I think. The state limited to 4%.
You will get questions and you can just answer in that fashion because people want to understand, you know, what we did has not affected their property taxes at all. It is more money out of their pocket. I get it. Yeah.
And before we close this part of the meeting and Angela's up at 10:30, I want to again apologize. I a lot of times put my foot in my mouth and don't come across, my brain and my mouth don't connect. And if I came across, and I probably did with Lisa, and that was not my intention. My intention for 5 years has been, how can we better pay our employees to get them more comparable and competitive? And I saw a chance of some monies that were there that would go into general fund and would make for more raises, but it would be minuscule compared with what we're actually talking about. So my apologies for putting my foot in the mouth once again. We all appreciate what you do, and you are underpaid, and we're hoping to correct that.
So before we move on, can I have consensus from the group that I make changes to the ordinance that Joel and I have looked at to reflect what we've discussed? 97% immediately,
Change in January.
change in January for elected officials.
97%
me.
of the Wagner Owen Shealy midpoint,
Yep.
yes.
And also,
I can add that, and I'll add it. Chief deputies would automatically go to 97%
Of midpoint.
of midpoint, yes. And then can we discuss what type of stipend for the elected officials that won't be there?
Are we going to try to make it up to that 97% or do you want a flat amount?
I guess my inclination is a flat amount.
Do we have an average of the,
Mm.
I mean,
Can we
We're
wait
talking-
till the weekend and do some
We,
actual
we can,
calculations?
we can, and I can just have Joel to leave that blank. And maybe we can make a better educated estimate.
I mean, if we
after
look at
getting
this
some
chart
numbers.
of where elected officials are off of average, we could come up with an amount, but
Well-
there's going to be winners and losers for sure if you do it that way.
It
So
varies because some elected,
Some are significantly off,
Some-
council's right on.
a few are there. More than us are there, but most of them are 15% below.
Is the
So
council going to forgo the stipend? That makes.
Yes.
it-
Yes.
Okay, then that makes it a little easier since we're not
Is that
over.
okay with council? I don't want
explain exactly what we're doing, not giving ourselves
to,
raises
we're the
again.
exception. We're not going to get a raise again because we're at market
Yeah,
according to
Right.
Wagner, and it's
Yeah.
We
going
wouldn't
down according
anyway,
to
so
Wagner
we
and
won't get the
Shealy.
stipend. But, I mean, we could take some kind of. I don't even know.
I mean, we can
I'm
give them
thinking
that stipend
5,000.
based on where they would be at 97%
It's
times.
just more work, so I don't know if that's more work for
Same as
Debbie.
everybody
Or we
else.
could just do 5,000 for everybody because
It's a little high, but yes.
it's not high, right?
Based on,
It varies
based
a
on what
lot
we're
from the
looking
elected
at.
officials.
Huh?
If you're talking about a stipend, it varies a lot from midpoint from,
That's why I'm saying there'll be winners and losers if we do an average. But if you just give 1,000, there's elected officials that are,
can we look at the numbers over the weekend?
sure.
Yeah, we can
Because
have
he's
this
doing some-
discussion
Sure.
again, and my
Understood.
objective would
And
be to
Eddie might
have,
have some comments.
yeah, my objective would be to have an ordinance that we can vote on at our August 14th meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
So I'll leave that line. I'll write it in there and have Joel review it with a dollar amount blank.
What, and I'm just gonna, this is not don't know if it's a good idea, bad idea, it's just conversation. what if you take the elected officials and put them at midpoint at the beginning of the year? And and if they wanted to forego a stipend this year, I'm just throwing out alternate ways to
would-
think
I
about
just think
things.
that
That would make
creates
them
a
higher.
future. If we say 97% and we're consistent across the board, we're good. You just, this one time, you're saying put them at 100% and leave them that way till January of.
I was just opening up a
Good.
alternate line of
It- it's-
conversation to
It's worth
consider.
considering. It
Okay, so
less complex.
do 100% in January and then next year in 26, they go back down to 97.
That screws up the cost,
That-
the
that could
calculation for the
actually
chief
lower-
deputies.
Yeah, it does.
Just an FYI footnote, to get to 95%, because we don't have a 97% column, 95% elected officials range from $1,400 to get to 95% to $5,000. But there's a 1,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 3,000, 3,000, 38. They're all over the maps, what my comment was.
Mhm.
So if you give us the weekend and talking to Addie, I think we'd be able to zero that in
Yeah,
on Monday.
That's fine.
And-
I'm fine to wait.
And Monday, 8:30 to 10:30, we go over the report that Addie asked us not to share yet, so she could explain it. And there's a lot of explanation to it. And at 10:30, we have
Yeah.
Health Department up.
I moved that we move on to Angela's budget after a small
Break,
break.
potty, drink, snack. Anybody? I do not want to take those chocolate chip cookies home because Ken and Gray will eat them. And Ken and Gray does not need to eat cookies. Ask my doctor. Who'd you bring with you? Angela? Who'd you bring with you? She looks for. I think I met her one time. You helped yesterday. Thank you for helping. I only took 1.5 home. I could deal with 1.5. I can't deal with 10.
If you're still going from last night, when you didn't start early, you just kept going, you weren't a quitter. Just weren't a quitter. I'm sorry. But I will tell you that it's true. I will also tell you that the last time I recorded a beat, a part-time meeting was the one up the front counter and recorded my beat. Customer walked through the door and what she said is absolutely. I'm so, I'm not gonna do that. The other thing I just, but I didn't get out. I don't have any issues. But there are I mean, two so before you guys, I knew some of them. Can you imagine if I thought that? So why did you do that? I knew you did a very job. How do you evaluate those kind of things if you don't have a job?
I'm not on it. Ask Shannon, Susan, and Betsy.
I heard it was done later. How do you now justify and evaluate those things if you don't know about it?
Not 100%. I think you can see each other.
I'm small government fiscal concern. You and I.
We're closer than I thought. You're closer than I thought we were.
There's not alike in that aspect.
I am fiscally conservative.
Yes, very much, and I.
Our financial advisor looked at what I saved for the very first paycheck I got when I made 9,000 something in 1979. He said, you're the age I couldn't go ahead. Terrible, 7 terrible teacher's retirement fund. you're better off than 95% of the 300 people that are compliant for the office. And if this was conservative, that's why we do 6 months. Where we have vapor.
Yeah, with zip. We were literally in the hole, in the right.
The work he does is unbelievable. But life of education depends upon state government. It's public, and it's a whole different animal.
I had to sign agreements. And then when
I don't know.
I am chief.
I'll see you Saturday.
Tired of 47, 48. I'm tired. And I'm very tested. I'm very-
4 years.
But it's served me well. My grandfather's famous statement was, you always pay yourself first for other people.
Yep. I remember you saying, you said that.
Always pay yourself first.
I remember you.
I'll tell you, that is a big,
Wage
it's
concession
served me well. in
Went
my-
well,
Very well. That's good advice.
feel good where we ended
Always
up.
pay yourself first. And so I've always.
Okay, and I need a cookie, I think.
$60,000 house. Only spending about $50,000. Chunking my chest.
Well, I did when we really couldn't afford it. Like I said, we made 9,000, agent didn't have a job. And I still put things in a savings account or retirement account.
Because it's.
And people said, how can you do that? I said, because I've been advised from my parents and grandparents, save for a rainy day. And you'll not be sorry. And I told my son that. I said, I know you're not gonna make a lot first year teacher. You put something back and you won't be sorry. And he's already saying, thank you, Dad, for that advice.
I made Emma start a law. That's her first official thing when she got a real job. She started a law practice. I put $500 in it. I put the first $500 in it. I told her, I said, put at least $100 a month. And then I showed her the math on paper. I said, Emma, if you do this when you're gross 21 and you just put this amount of money, I said, by the time you are 65, you'll be $900,000 at least.
Yeah. Social Security.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, compound interest is an insane thing. How's the county getting millions of dollars this year? Compound interest is
Yeah.
insane.
It's helped us tremendously.
And I can promise you, I'm getting a hell of a lot better return than 5% on my money at Merrill Lynch. Somewhere close to 17%.
Okay.
It's astounding to me.
It is.
The amount of money that I make just sleeping. It's great.
Water cup somewhere.
Uh-oh. Yes, I would be lost if I didn't bring the water. Melissa is absolutely, if you come to our fridge in the garage, come to the garage, open the fridge, there's a whole shelf full of items. Have you heard I have a granddaughter? Melissa's, that's where you go to. I don't like her. You see, I like to to an extent.
It was gonna happen tomorrow. Okay, that's tomorrow, 8:30. I don't know if everybody got notified. Sorry, you missed it. No, it's okay. I'm glad you added.
I was gonna say, have you ever, I mean, I didn't know you stopped opening your mouth.
I'm trying to take a drink of coffee here.
Sorry. Angie and I get along pretty well. I can pick on her. She picks on me. She gives as good as she gets, I promise.
Asking me dumb questions. Scott, they want to know what. One of the questions is, what is impact investing? And I am, please, I mean, it's like, I'm listening.
No, I've read what our revenues were from 2007 forward, and it goes, oh.
That's one of the questions. Well, what has that been to? You know, free, you just curse word stuff.
Please don't. If we can get started with the health department as soon as possible. Angela's been patient.
Not only patient, but flexible. This is your
I,
time we suggested for you.
thank you. Thank you. Okay. We're 11:59, 11:61, I think.
If I could, can we start with 11:61?
Yep.
I think that can help make it 11:59.
Okay, 11:61, council. It's the newer one.
Oh, that's good.
And I think Bobby gave you the order that we have that we're looking at. Local public health services maintenance. And that's largely the new state monies, right? Got a chair. We had 5 yesterday at one time.
Shannon,
That's why the extra chairs.
was Angela's,
Her last name wouldn't be like Harvey or something, would it? She looks like a Harvey. Yeah, she was like super high in the class of whatever it was, 2023. I remember. Okay.
I missed her name. I'm sorry, what was, hi Lydia.
Joel's-
Nice to,
Joel's daughter.
oh, okay, nice. Did,
She's
did
been
we
to
already,
Vail.
did we already tell you that your group health number is gonna be 150? Am I right, Shannon? 150?
Yeah.
Okay, and 150?
Yeah.
I can only have one heart attack at a time.
Okay.
Oh,
So
Well, it's number one.
that's number one. and it's-
Part of.
Okay, sorry, I should have waited.
We need to
First
get
heart
you that
attack first.
microphone behind you because we are live streaming. And part of the discussion that you were not able to be part of this morning included an evaluation of the health insurance premiums divided by department, whether or not to include retirees, how many retirees are on Humana plan and how many are still on the other plan. And so we came to a calculation and I will hand you my sheet.
Okay.
But it basically came down to, I think yours was 143,000 is what the calculation came out to be. And in order to provide some level of buffer for employees in your department to change coverages or for additional, we changed it to 150, or was it one?
Okay.
150.
It was
So last
130.
year,
It
we
was
budgeted
136.
247.5,
The health come out of 1161 or 1159?
She changed it this year, didn't she?
1159.
11:59.
So I took her
It
back.
wasn't,
when I
it
said that
wasn't
from where she wanted to
1161,
start.
yes.
So with that said, looking at 2025, I have I have 13 full-time positions is where I'm hoping to be. So does
How does that
that,
compare to where you are today?
I think we have 8. 1, 2,
Hmm.
3. I was gonna count them.
That changes
It
that
does,
number.
and that's why I didn't know if you were looking at that.
Did we based off last year's actual?
Okay, based off of last year's actual, and that's okay.
Sorry.
So
2024 actuals.
then correct.
So that's gonna be that many more in 2025 that you just.
So you will need to up that for
Okay.
it.
From this year.
I'm,
I think we're about to
Commissioner
give her a heart
Director,
attack number 2.
Shannon, you didn't just take people in the department, you took people in the department with insurance.
Yes.
Right.
So it's gonna depend.
and so I'm in the department full-time, but I don't take our insurance.
You weren't-
So I was not, and that was a question because, if for some reason my husband was in a car wreck and then I needed to come onto this insurance, I was always under the impression that we had to pay something even though I didn't take it, I had to pay something toward the whole premium because what if I did come in the half of the year? Because otherwise that would leave a hole.
Yeah.
And then my question to that was, what was that amount? Do you,
do you set that base amount as a single individual or
We-
a single
we
with a
buffer
child? What would be the
each
median?
Department with about $15,000 in case one new person came on in the middle of. the
Here, I'm
year.
gonna hand you this,
So-
and then I'll
okay.
tell you how many.
Lydia?
Thank you.
And last year we calculated the actual amount was 22, so the 15 was not the buffer we added last
Okay.
year.
In your
So,
department, Angela, you have one employee on employee only on Plan A. You have one employee on employee plus dependents on Plan A. You have 4 employees on Plan B with just employee only.
That's six.
You have 1 on Plan B with employee plus dependents and 1 on Plan B with employee and family.
So that's 8.
So you have a grand total of, yes, 6, 7, 8 employees who take insurance,
8 employees and then.
different
that-
levels,
And that doesn't, so I don't take insurance, so that doesn't count me.
right? I did not get employee names from any of this, so I do
No.
not know who those
Just got
individuals
numbers.
are.
Huh?
Just got numbers.
No, yeah, no, so I was trying to think.
So if you're going to add employees, we need to take into account, maybe half of them will take insurance. That's a rough guess. Is that fair? Does that seem reasonable to you guys?
I would,
Say that again.
If
I think
she's
that's
gonna
gonna
add
undercut it.
employees, can we assume maybe that half of them will take insurance and we need to budget for that?
I'm okay with that.
And perf.
And
Right.
it's gonna include everything, yeah.
Yeah. So when I turn, okay, so perf is actually in the 11s, okay. That preface that, so let me show you what we've done. One of the things that I can no longer do humanly is to go to bed every night and know whether or not I am going to lose an employee because the taxes didn't come in right. And we've had long discussions at the state about this, and when the first year of the HFI money rolled out, a big example, Marion County took half of their full-time employees and put it into their HFI fund, and they left half of it into their tax levied amount and kind of split it. I did a similar thing for 2025. But knowing that you, in the paper that I just handed you, has the updated amount of what we are getting in HFI. So in the green box under Henry, it's the 1.67,157,004. Your minimum match from the 1159 account is 238,455.75.
What's the green box? 'Cause ours
Oh,
is
I'm
black and
sorry, the
white.
middle box. It'll be that
Just notice
middle,
that
right
number,
under it
the
where it says Henry
1067,
County.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So this
Um,
is the health first from the state, and in order to get it, the county has to match you the 238.
Correct. Okay, so, I took every position to include part-time and I moved it into that money,
This year,
Bec-
1161.
into the 1161.
Okay.
I also knew that you were, very, in serious consideration of moving everybody to the midpoint. So when Addie redid my, all of my job descriptions, just like she did for the whole county.
Right.
So my December 2023 report, I took the midpoint for all of these positions, and that is what you're seeing in this budget. So I've already moved my individuals there. And that budget also includes Social Security and PERF
For these new wages.
for these new, And I found out last week that once all 92 counties did opt in and everything shook out, we got an additional 3,277. And we put that into a technology software piece. We can't put it in now, yeah. I thought that would be the case, but I wanted to get it to you now before I forgot it.
I'd
So-
like to, if you don't mind, I've made the calculation for group health insurance.
Okay.
And if we take the 136,580 on that page, divided by the 8 employees that take insurance, gives us an average of 17,000. Multiply that times 3, that's an additional 51,000. So we had 150K. I would suggest we make that 200.
200,
Is everybody
Yes.
good with that?
Yes.
okay.
So that gets us a nice round number in the budget and you should be darn close.
Are you
I should-
keeping track of heart attacks?
Huh?
That
Yeah, I'm
one
keeping
went
track.
Is that
down.
number
That
two?
number went down, less heart attacks.
Yeah.
She has 290 in there.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
I did. I mean, I took the 22 or 21.5, whatever, and just did it by the whole thing. So,
You got
um,
90,000
we got 90,000 back. So you're welcome.
from what you budgeted. Thank you. Well, it's
From what
gonna-
we went up last year and the heart attack we gave you last
Well-
year.
That's right, because I have a credit, because I think I've been a little overtaxed this year, but we may be able to use that to fix this mid-year. Okay, you got to stop doing this thing in the middle of the year.
We just said we'd stop right now and then forever on, 97%
on.
of market in January.
Thank you. But now that means I gotta figure it out now. Okay. So that's basically the 1161 Health First Indiana budget. And what that does, it's 13 full-time employees. And if you will indulge me for just a moment, one of the tools that they had given us at the beginning, trying to figure out what we needed to do with this, was to calculate the FTEs for a health department by population and by a couple of indicators about our health. And so with our population at 48,000, with the fact that we don't fare so well on years of healthy life in this particular rural county,
Right.
that tool, and this was a modest number, and I about fell out my chair, but the tool says we need 30 full-time employees to impact the health of Henry County in the manner in which it should be
And you just said
impacted.
you're getting to 13.
And I'm gonna have 13, and I'm over the moon about that, and believe you me, we're getting things done now, and with 3 more people, we're really gonna get stuff done.
Right. believe you.
We're gonna have some good continuity and good partnerships, so, that's kind of where we're at with that.
Can I ask a question or clarification?
Uh-huh.
New employees, you said, because you have a separate line for new employees on what you put down for department requests for salaries included perf and what else?
Yes,
Yeah.
Social Security,
CA, and that's it, salary? perf, and-
salary, taxes.
Okay, that explains why the number is a little higher than what we see on the Wagner with Sheila, because you included 2 things that didn't know
Mhm.
you did. Makes a difference, so, okay.
And I appreciate you including those in here, and I asked this morning for all departments that are in your position with their own funds to include group health insurance, perf, social security, liability insurance, and workers' comp, all 5.
And so those are over in the 1159.
They're separated out for you, right?
They are.
So you said you moved all your people to 1161.
I moved all
Will
of
that
the,
include the new?
mhm.
Okay, that's all
Yes,
in there now. You have your new
absolutely.
Your new,
So
included.
correct.
Okay.
Angela, I have a bit of a philosophical question. So you're taking on new employees and that's great. I know you're going to put them to good use. Can you give us a sense of what that looks like, the increased services to our Henry County residents?
Oh, absolutely. We have needed another full-time environmental health staff. So if you look at my hours and I love this new timekeeping system because it makes it very easy for me to walk downstairs and look and say, okay, you guys have this enormous amount of comp time because there's only 2 of you. And I know you like that and I know that works well. I said, but it doesn't work for me when one of you retire because I have to pay you out. I said, so we're not doing this. And that just has to be. And when somebody goes on vacation, we struggle. So having 3 full-time employees down there is going to change that dynamic completely. Because we've got one person who could retire at any minute, for that consideration. We have taken on, 2 new additional programs, in nursing now. We've been able to increase, by a couple of nurses this time, one because of a grant, which all of that'll fall into the new funding next year. But a service that's been desperately needed. We got a lot of people that fall through the cracks since the women's clinic closed. And so now between the Title X clinic, between our FQHC, we're able to there is nobody in Henry County that should have to have syphilis for more than 24 hours because there is a cure for that. Please come see me. So it's the truth.
Yeah.
Did you just say because there's a cure for it? Is that what?
There is, and I have it, and it's no 24 hours. There should be no reason anybody should be giving that to anybody, okay?
The cure.
I do.
Declare.
Yes, and it's on the rise nationwide, because nationwide is ridiculous.
Yikes.
So, and we're drawing blood twice a month now for people who, can't afford it, and that, you know, so we're doing so much more, than we were.
Sure. I would love to hear,
With that.
not now, because I know we've got other things to talk about, but I would love
Oh.
to hear more about all those changes.
Yeah, and of course, we've got a new education department, and we're kind of, the talk of the town about that because nobody else stuck their neck out and did that. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense at all. I have to have this education department. So, it's all coming together.
Sure. That's great. Thank you for your leadership.
Okay, so the 1159 then,
Are you done with 1161?
yes, that's all there, that it's simple, straightforward, and they were happy about that at the state. They were like, woohoo.
Okay.
So the 1161 total ask was 1,063,000, which is this
Oh,
number.
it should come out to,
I mean,
well,
about
it
double.
should come out to that number.
basically this number. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was double last year because of the new state funding and you moving things from 1159 over to 1161.
Yeah, we only got half of that amount, like 500 and some
Right.
thousand last year.
I had one question, the JCAP position.
Oh, yeah.
I could not find it in the Wagner Irwin Shealy report. So is that based on what?
Okay, so, we had the contract with, Jamie and, Mr. Rogers prior to, and those were negotiated salaries, and, Addie will be working on that. That just last fall, when I moved Jamie in, we were still using, opioid funds. And Jamie was in the middle of this, and you guys were contracting her for the new one. I knew we were close, so we do need a job description for Jamie. But it's right there. It's right
So
there.
is that amount
It's an SO.
comparable to what Dick made, or I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know what Dick made. Is it,
He made $50 an hour.
so theirs is based on an hourly rate, like.
It
some-
was based on an hourly rate, and we did do, you know, some looking, Indeed and some of the other, functionalities that you can go find out what average licensed mental health counselors were. And, somewhere, anywhere between, in Indiana, 72 and 95,000. So she fell in the middle of that.
So what you put down for that position also included perf and FICA,
Oh, yes,
all those on that
Mhm.
1161 due.
all of 1161.
Good to know. Thanks.
Yes, yes. But yeah, there's a couple, I need to cross a couple Ts with that yet. So what then I had to do was I had to move all of my operating budget into 1159, which we had line items, but we hadn't done that in a while. But so if you'll come down, I think our first one, so the group insurance, I had used the previous figure, so 290, 184. So Shannon, you said we're going to adjust that to 200. Okay. With that. And then workman's compensation, 5,000. I usually have a little bit left over in that.
Yeah, we received an update on that earlier and we were told the physician's portion was allocated. However, Bobby's gonna try to give us a list by department, so.
Oh, okay. Cause what? Health did workman's comp?
Workers' comp did, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and they do. They send me that and then it shows each department. So that's what I have typically in years past budgeted for that. The compensation for the Board of Health hasn't changed. The longevity, is in this side of it, of course, went up. So if I've done everything right, we should be at 8,000.
Well, the amended was 9,500 this year.
Huh?
After amendment, it was 9,500 this year.
This year in 2025? Did I do that wrong again?
I don't know. It started out at, well, 50 cents.
Oh, Debbie Nunley, but we had to pay her out. But don't we have to pay her that? No, we already done that. Okay. So for oh, okay. Well, I don't think I have her in here. I have several new people that haven't hit their 3-year mark yet.
Hopefully the increase in longevity will help with retaining a little bit.
I'm gonna have Stephanie double check that to make sure.
Where does the county match come from?
The county
Does
match.
it come from the
The
1150?
county match, is from our tax levy from the 1159.
But it's just not on this budget or
It is that budget. So
is the 250,
It-
the 238?
the 238 at minimum, this
You
1159
have to keep the levy bringing in at least 238 or you don't. Okay, sorry.
or more. Mhm,
Okay.
correct. And, then, so there was longevity. So, the supplies, as you kind of come down through there, are things that would have typically been on that health maintenance grant that we had gotten the legacy money for years. And then some of this is increased. I won't say it's doubled, but there may be one or two line items that's doubled, and it's simply, does that look right? Okay. Doubled just simply because I have more staff and I need more supplies. So I've tried to make a decent adjustment for that. We do retain, Joel Harvey for 40 hours of attorney consultation for the year, and that's been pretty steady. We do have a malpractice insurance in here. And again, that is an amount that covers my department and the jail. And I have asked numerous times Josh Estel as to why that is. And I don't know, it's the way it's always been. And it's gets split 50-50. And
You don't think that you're,
well, I certainly don't think that my office promotes as much liability medically as the jail does. So a 50-50 split is questionable in my mind, but I'm picking my battles. And it's not been one that I've worried too much about because I've had bigger battles. But as we move forward, and I know you're making significant adjustments over in that budget, I think it would be worth a question to Josh Estel as to, why do we
curious what
still?
it includes because QCC covers their own malpractice. So what are we doing medically that we could incur?
I don't know. And that's an excellent question too. And if we're not really providing, if we have a contract with QCC to provide the medical care, if you have a medical malpractice policy, it opens you up to be sued because the attorney says, oh, you
We're
have.
gonna go after both.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's,
That's what they do.
that's what they do. So I don't know, just something I'd
So
appreciate
Josh question.
a Josh
Shannon
question.
and I talked to Josh and he mentioned that historically, the way things are, how it's distributed is exactly what you said. It's the way it's
Have any
always
thoughts
been,
about that?
Mhm.
and we're getting away from that.
Well, and I know, and Josh will always say, we provide the premium, then it goes to the council, the commissioners across the street, and then the determination of how things are divided up. But if you look at all the workman's comp and different things, I think there's more of a percentage, but there's only the two of us to do that with. I don't know. I think it warrants a look if we have time, if it's a battle somebody would.
Well, if you remember right, 3 years ago, your share of the group insurance with the other three that have their separate tax rate was all over the map
Mm.
and lopsided against you.
Yeah.
That's what we've been working to.
I know you have, and I appreciate that. So, but
we're
so like I
getting
said,
there,
it
but-
wasn't a battle that I felt it was a few
Right.
$1,000s. So,
Well, that was a battle you needed to fight.
yeah, well, and then, so probably the big line item, if you're looking down here and going $24,000, this is our contract, our IT contract with Octal Systems. Because we have so many individuals, our building up until this year did not have adequate Wi-Fi throughout the building, through our different departments. The servers on the county side had previously been a little questionable. And the truth of the matter is, the judges outrank me. And so if there's a problem in the courthouse across the street, and duly so, and I don't mean to mock that at all, but it's just how it is, and Jeff is one person. So when I took this job several years ago, we had a contract with Octal Systems for the additional IT support, and we just have a good relationship. I feel like it's working for us, and it certainly takes a lot of stress off of Jeff, and it keeps us functioning at the level that we need to be able to function with the state and do all those things.
If it's
So-
any consolation, they outrank us too.
Oh, I know. Right?
And they let us know it during budget hearings. You don't
Well, I
need to
just
do
tell
this, but
them,
we can
I know
order
you
it.
outrank
We
me,
can
so there
order
you
you
go.
to do what we're asking. You don't.
Yeah. So, but just an explanation for those of you who are the first time looking at this, that is why we do that. So I'm not sure if there's any other department within the county that does
Don't think
that.
so.
And then, I don't know, unless you all have any other questions. The utilities for the emergency preparedness building out at the training ground. I included that in our budget. You know, we were lucky to get some ARP funding for that, to put that up, and we've put it to use from minute one, and Tim did an excellent job scoping that all out. You got to see it the other day.
Tim was in here.
Was he?
Yesterday, and I said, the first time I'd been out to the emergency training center. And kudos to all involved, because it's 50% better than the last time I was there and 80% better than 10 years ago. And he said, well, you can thank Angela for a portion of what you see out here, because
Right,
the monies you had, but it's well spent, and we're actually a nice facility. We're in the.
And we're
past.
saving thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in equipment loss due to mold and wet in the basement and different things like
Well,
that.
during the pandemic, you were
Yeah.
saying you're losing half the stuff you're getting in from the government because we don't have proper
Wouldn't have,
storage.
yeah, so all that's good, and I did take on the utilities for the year, so it's a climate controlled building with that, because their budget's kind of limited. And then just some money in there for trying to stay ahead of the curve, and always putting some money in there for servers. We did replace our server this year. I took a lot of the HFI budget and increased and took our technology up a notch. So we should be good for several years with that.
Is the 420,000 the amount of the tax levy that we're expecting this year? Does anyone have that number? Is it for the health?
For,
I don't have that in front of me, what Baker Tilly gave us as the estimate of what we're supposed to. I just,
it
I think I
seems
took
like
it
that
out.
it was close.
okay.
1159.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I took it out last night and didn't put it back in. I know where it is. It's like my computer at home. I think I brought it.
And then, you know, keeping in mind on that total 500, I'm comfortable in saying that we're gonna have 115,000 in revenue off of our things that we charge for. That seems to be pretty consistent.
So the expected operating receipts for 25 is 677,000,
For 25.
what it looks like to me, unless I'm reading it wrong.
I know.
Right?
That's funny. So
It won't be down there.
I don't know how. I mean,
699.
I'm panicked that 2024, I'm gonna slide in and break even.
69 this year is what
669 this
24
year.
says.
Total
500.
operate. That's tax levies, circuit breakers, taken out, excess levy, shortfall.
Shannon, remember when I came and I said that we had dug into my reserve? Horribly so. So I only started this year with 67,000, and I thought I had closer to 200.
It says you started this year with 87,000.
Okay, 87, but we had to do the additional.
But your charges for fees is only that whole amount. This year's 118,000.
Okay, so 118.
But it adds on your portion of the certified property tax minus the tax rate, that circuit breaker, excess levy, shortfall. You didn't have any this year. Net property tax, your portion of it, auto excise, and other things, you get small percentage of.
Adding in your services.
Your
and then
services of
miscellaneous.
hundred and 18 and miscellaneous receipts 51 comes to 669 this year.
Well, I would love to recoup some of that money I had to dig into, and if December 31st that happens, we'll all go out and have
I was,
dinner.
I was just wondering what you budgeted against. I mean, your budget looks fine to me. You know what you need, but I was just curious what number you budgeted against. That's why I asked for the report, so. It
I
looks
didn't
like-
see the 600. I think I saw closer to the 4.
Some of these other taxes, you get a percentage of,
Your net
highway
property
gets a
tax
percentage
is
of.
462, which is maybe closer to what. you
Closer
probably
to
what you're
what? I
thinking
think
of.
that's
And then you get,
probably,
you know, and then they're predicting your charge, what you're getting for your services and other things, which increases it. So, yeah, like you say, better to under budget and end up with more and adjust the next.
right, because for the last 2 years, I've budgeted higher and then realized that at the end of the year, I don't have as much reserve. And so that
We run
was
into
my,
That too.
huh?
We've run into that too as a council.
And I can't quite make it, the math makes sense in my head, but it doesn't make sense to budget more than,
Right.
yeah, because that's a whole nother set of heart attacks, so.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I don't have any questions about it.
A lot of thought went into it.
Hope you do get the 600,000 and then,
Okay.
you know. I didn't have anything.
I think that's all we talked about. Ready for another heart attack?
So, well, let me ask you this. If we do change the group health amount, is that mine to budget or is that something that you need to, that you plan to reallocate?
Not. We haven't discussed reallocating. She said if she reduces her group health rate, can she recoup and use those funds or are we planning to reallocate?
You're the only one.
Well, she's asking, I think, if we're gonna split and give the park a higher. If you make the question really specific, that's what you're asking.
What, yes, to be very blunt, that is what I'm asking because, you know, I know what you're able to do. And
You're-
I've come to
What,
you.
what you have to pay on for your health insurance is based on your employees, not anything to do with the
She's
park.
asking about the tax rate.
So,
Are we
my-
gonna
Oh,
give
the
park
tax
a
rate.
Higher part of the tax rate now, since we see that she has this funding.
Gotcha.
Does anybody remember over time what we've done with that rate? Have we given more to the park over time? Or over the health, like? I guess I'm saying if we have given you more in the past, maybe we did too much, but I just don't know historically what we did with that. Do you remember? Chad, do you remember? What we did historically with that split between health and park? Did we shorten the
So,
park or shorten the health department?
We actually increased the health department
Mhm.
and shortened others because the health department needed additional funds. I've not seen that we pulled back from the health department ever. And at least when I was involved.
And I think we've done it one time. Is
I
it-
remember once that
I think there was some
What?
grants or some things that changed and we had to make some shifting and
Mhm.
get some
Because
things.
there's a process, don't you have to do something? Doesn't that like cost money and it's a whole thing?
To change how those
to change how
distributions
those
are
are
done.
distributed?
I think there is.
think it was really easy because Debbie
Oh.
asked Baker Tilly. and
Yeah,
they
Baker Tilly
did
just
it.
drew up the
That's what I
forms, I think, and we.
They
Okay.
did.
I think it's simple. My impression was it was simple and quick and I was still learning the job and trying to understand what that meant. when we did it.
And we got a bill for it.
And we did get a bill. That's okay. I
$15,000
remember somebody saying it cost money.
$15,000 to.
I think it's a simple process, but it does require a timing thing to
Timing.
get done.
But it
So-
was early enough during budget session that we did it. I think we shouldn't answer your question until we talk to the park, but I'm not, it had never even occurred to me before you said that, but I do think maybe we should wait till we do the park budget.
Which is
I
Monday.
think we should as well, and we also talked about adjusting that same allocation for cumulative bridge.
Yeah.
So if there's dollars left in there, then I would prefer we look at that and reallocate if we needed to. I'm sorry, I was still on health
No,
insurance.
that's
You were
okay.
on tax base.
That's okay.
My fault.
So, you know, like I said, my all-in was 420,500. No, and then looking at Baker Tilly, you're saying it could be closer to 600,
70, like I already gave it back. I
Yeah.
think it was 670.
670. So,
If we reduce health by, or the group health by 100, then you have 300,000 Possibly, we need to check the number. We always get updates from Baker Tilly right before budget that refine those numbers.
They're
I think
coming.
Debbie's-
Okay.
Last year's budget was $715,000 and for 1159, and her, this year's
And-
budget is 420. And then that included the 29, did that include the 290?
Well, remember, and we over, I
Yes.
came to you panicked
Thank you.
because I had thought that I would be able to add almost $200,000 to that 700,000 this year.
Mhm.
And when I did not have it, I stopped and I did not hire the two positions.
Right.
So I should be okay at the end of the
I
year.
would say we wouldn't do that without making sure you're okay.
Okay.
That's
Here's
my
a-
opinion.
Question for you about this number right here. Are you
Uh-huh.
expecting it to stay stagnant or get an inflationary increase?
We're hoping inflationary increase. And that does, beg the question that if we put my staff at the median, they're there until, and the only way that that changes really is if HFI changes. But, I'm gonna have to do that to be competitive. Hancock County, is offering 62,000 for a brand new environmental health specialist to walk in with no administrative duties.
And that's why they are in our comp group. It was a really interesting report because you look at it and you think Hancock County is dragging up our average, but then you're
Yeah,
like,
they are.
and rightly
Mm,
so,
so is
because we
Delaware.
compete with them.
We do.
Delaware wasn't for elected, okay, well, we don't need to, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah,
So
that's our
that puts
competition.
that as our competition. So if we have to go above the, if we do not get the, what you call that, raise every year with the HFI money so that we can give raises, we'll have to look at compensating somehow
Is
from
that-
the other area, but we're not there yet.
For
No.
your 1161, should we modify your salaries to match the 97% that we just decided to do? Rather than the midpoint that you have here?
I think we're going to have to, yeah, and that'll happen
That
in
will
every
adjust
department's
just a
budget.
little bit.
Okay. How that works though is that is a very particular spreadsheet. And so only 40% of this money can be spent on what they consider health protection. And then 60% or more has to be on the preventative core services side. So it depends on who
How
I
we
put
impact
where.
you.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
Hopefully
I
it
just,
works out still.
yeah, I just need a little heads up and minute to kind of adjust that.
I mean, that'll be part of budget next week. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gonna be close, but you may be a little, I haven't looked at, maybe you're high if you went with the market. Or maybe not so much if it was market a little bit before these revised market, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It might be. And I had given Addie that document from the state where they had done basically what Wagner did for us on everything, but they took it from every county in the state and looked at every public health position across the board. So just out of curiosity, like a director of nursing, for example, so the external market midpoint for that being a PAP 4 was 66,864. What did,
Have yours open, Shannon?
oh,
I do,
PAP
What was the
4,
position?
what's their midpoint?
midpoint for PAT 4 in the Wagner and Shealy report shows
63.
63,438.
So I'm above a little bit.
Correct.
Is that a problem if it consistently is slightly above that?
Well, I think what we're saying is we're going to adjust those to be 97% of that.
97%. So you're gonna take some of those hourly rates down.
Little bit,
Yes.
little bit.
We're going to be consistent with 95% of midpoint across all employees.
97.
Yeah.
97. I'm sorry,
97%.
97%.
Midpoint. Okay,
And
so
that's
that,
Every January based on the most recent report.
90, okay. And that will be easy enough to do because I've got a lot of other places that I can plug that, offset that money, and that'll be an ease
Okay.
on my end. That's okay.
Awesome.
So we'll get back to you about the tax levy rates.
Okay.
You can't change hers.
I think you were doing copies while we talked about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she said that,
Okay.
but you can't change hers.
Just saying.
I don't know why. you can't say.
Oh, the cumulative bridge.
Yeah, I remember we did it before and it seemed like it was very simple
we
and
took
we
it
did it
for
during budget
reassessment.
session.
Mhm.
We did reassessment. Yeah, because
So
we're,
it's reassessment
right.
to put it on.
yeah, so reassessment, we've adjusted the park and health before, but Cambridge, what was the month for Cambridge? May 30th. May 30th.
And we get emails for.
So last question then, if you make this adjustment for current employees beginning September 1,
Where does the money come from, right?
if I don't have it, I mean, you know, if Wagner's right and I'm panicking over nothing, but come probably the 1st of November, when Bobby emails me and says, all these funds are in the negative, I'm gonna freak out.
We're not gonna make you negative.
If your funds are gonna go negative, we have the ability to correct some things, so
Okay.
we're good.
Fair enough. Yes, please.
Yeah.
S. Tom, HOM. Okay,
I'm gonna bring
thank
up-
you.
Bring up your third heart attack.
Do you have another?
Another
I
one?
thought we just
I
finished.
thought we
It
just
was
finished
good.
it. Now what?
What's the third one?
Okay, I will. You don't want me to.
Are you serious? What? Are you messing with me?
I serve on the legislative committee of the County Councils Association. Most counties are, because the legislature allows them to tap into year 2 for the general fund, like 20%. Many counties have taken 20% of this funds you're talking about, put in the general fund. Now the non-heart attack, given the lits we raised last Thursday, we're not even looking at that, but some counties are.
So that's where the minimum comes in.
Right.
That's where the minimum, yes.
Right. In fact, quite a few counties that
Oh, I know.
are looking at, and last year you and I had this conversation. I said, well, we won't look at more than 20%. We don't have to look at any now. So heart attack
Okay.
gone. But a lot of counties are tapping that.
Oh, I know. That doesn't
No
surprise
heart
me.
attack, just FYI,
Okay, thank you very much.
heart attack removed. I gave you,
Nice to meet you.
yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Take a cookie, please. Lily, take a cookie. It looks like you could use a cookie. I don't look like I could use a cookie. Oh, I tried.
You're a track
you.
runner, right? Do you run? Yeah, that's what I thought your dad said.
What else, council?
I didn't hear you.
EMS is a concern
Yeah, they can't,
for this year.
they can't.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think she put 30,000 in last week.
So we have put in 130 total.
130 is dollars that were put in that they had billed for that come to us in the form of
So the
payments.
30 is the payments there was.
Yes,
I thought
payments
it was
received.
additional funds
No.
that came from us. Okay. Okay.
EMS is a concern overall.
There's a lot to
Yeah,
talk
they-
about with EMS, actually.
Look
And
at-
Wagner, when Shealy report shows they're 39% below where they should be. And that's, it's a major concern.
Even with the EMS lit over the weekend, I looked at that. I said, that's not going to, I'm not going to be able to achieve that.
So we need,
Well, there's 150 left, but a year from now, there won't be because I know the city will increase that amount.
Budget was large.
Well, I would be surprised if they don't. Maybe.
There's no,
Speak up in the meeting.
there's no nice way to
Right.
describe that.
and there's been a few,
Then the paper made it look even more confusing.
It did.
They described it. It's like, just leave that part out.
what EMS looks like after the next 20 months is going to have a lot of further discussions amongst a lot of folks that I hope everybody comes prepared to work cooperatively together to arrive at the best solution for the residents of this county and
I'll stay
not
home.
leave everybody, leave all the individual names out of it, and let's figure out what the best thing to do is.
Yes.
It's tough.
Figure out how to decrease the county.
We talked about that when we did it. We needed to
Yeah.
be prepared to lose it if we
Yeah.
did it. There was no guarantee.
I'm not sure that they'll be able to. And I'm not thinking. I was so. Well, that happens, and that's. Spending, and you see some of the places, it's hard to. It really is. I mean, that's the. Part of we see.
You see every.
Yeah, we don't
every
see that.
Bit of money that goes there.
It's gotta be hard, and I made a comment earlier about not wanting to micromanage individual departments' budgets. If any department is spending things that they should not be spending things on, then they're either accountable to the commissioners or to the voting public. And
Or to the
those-
state.
Or
Our
to the state,
constituents need to be electing department heads whose
and that's,
primary goal is to reduce costs.
But they don't know.
For the office, like keeping the office in the little basket, put the oranges and apples.
mhm.
It may be allowable, but you're hurting. Cut some of those things out, and let everyone bring their own, you know what I'm saying? Because
Sure.
that's what I'm thinking, at home, when I run my house, you know, if I've hurt something, I'm gonna cut something out.
And unfortunately, every department head has the ability to make those decisions just like you do, and we can't control that. So yeah, if you were a department head, you would run it differently. Then I certainly understand. I know.
Well,
You gotta try your.
Yeah,
That's my
I think your point's entirely valid. We don't see what you guys see. I mean, you guys see the receipts. We don't.
All
We,
department managers should be good stewards of the money that they are given, and if they are
if you see
not,
something that's particularly egregious, I hope you'd let us know so that we can plan and budget better for the future.
but we can't remove
No,
or change how they
right.
do things. We can, right, we have to be fair across all departments, and that's what I've been trying to do.
This has been an adjustment for me because my entire life I've worked, well, school corporation, it's public monies. But the accountability that the legislators make us do by having evaluations, my last 5 years, I had to do 5 evaluations for each of the 20 teachers I was assigned to. That's about all I got done. It was discipline of students and evaluating teachers. And coming here is the first place where there's not that kind of formal evaluation. And it was discussed in those meetings over 911. And when the rubber met the road, it died a quick death at the very end. The last session, it was, we don't want that.
I tried to implement an evaluation plan, but I got knocked down by previous administration. Because it really should have been, a lot of counties do like. And that's how the rates are given to.
Yeah, I've seen some counties where performance evaluations are done and wages are awarded based on merit.
We talked about.
Wagner and Shealy advises against that.
For governments like ours. public
Yeah,
governments.
for, if you're gonna do that, then you gotta do it for everybody.
And you have to do it carefully, so you have documentation. for everything,
Yes.
so
Oh,
there's-
yes.
And that,
Very
it opens up a liability mess. Yeah. But performance evaluations are, and I've said this before, it's based on the person doing the evaluation's
It is.
expectations. And I have received performance evaluations where I'm ranked between 1 and 5 in many different categories. I'm a 3 down the board. And I'm like, but he got a 3 too, and you expect way more out of me. He ain't doing anything. And we both, it's all about the expectations, doing the same job, different expectations from different individuals. The person doing it gets messy. So we would be opening ourselves up to a lot of liability. So it's tough.
It
If we want
is
to tackle that at some point in time, not
there-
right now.
a lot of liability and you got to have a really, really good system in place. I have to turn in paperwork every year to Penn State, and as part of my performance evaluation. I think that document was about 40 pages. So
Yeah.
it's, and that, oh, there's multiple documents. I mean, but, I don't know.
Specifically with the EMS, I think that we probably need to be prepared to cover this from the general fund when we do this raise.
Agreed. Can you guys provide us with those 4 departments and what they have in reserves? I mean, I know the EMS, what they have is not there, but,
Yeah, Health Park and 911. We know 911 has it.
yeah, we believe 911 has it, but if you can share, send it to us in an email. The park, 911, health, highway.
Highway, thank you.
Highway,
Those are the 4. Yeah.
and EMS is the other one. Are there any others that we need?
I don't think so.
I think that's the only other one. Let's see what those reserves are. That way, if we have another surprise that we need to figure out how to make those changes happen. And then we'll have to figure out how to make them happen moving forward, right? So, yeah, if you could let us know, I'd appreciate it. What about the park? Does the park have it? Okay,
But the parts aren't in the same category as everybody else's, so what is the reason I don't?
what are the categories are they in?
They're in 3,000 instead of 1,000.
But they're named similar to that?
Some of that's changing, like Nerwin Sheila.
Yeah,
Park Security's put as a poll.
yeah,
That's totally different.
yeah. Well, that's. Uh-huh. Okay,
It's like perfect.
And building and equipment insurance.
okay. As long as we can differentiate, and if there's one that has them all in benefits, that's the one
That's Mandy.
that's Mandy. Okay, if we can split that one out so we can get an idea of what that looks like for her, that would be great. Because a couple of those numbers will change based on what we're talking about and some of them won't. So, thank you.
So she's the main outlier currently in the budget. One little footnote to my evaluation story. Every teacher believes they're a master teacher and deserves the 4 out of 4. Everyone believes that. So the system that state came up with is very, very specific to try to avoid that. But you don't avoid the emotion. The humanness of every person believes that they're top notch.
Every fund, this.
I know.
Every fund I put up, every dollar, all that, I can, I hear the state report and all that, but then the other people making plans.
Right.
Really so expensive, so it's a lot.
All I can say is I would definitely give you a 4 out of 4.
Yeah, what's the scale? Clarify the scale there.
The state,
4 out of 4.
state delineates the scale.
You're not,
Yeah, but
no, they're looking at your job description.
And it's kind of tiered, I mean, I don't understand.
you guys have the report yet or just the council?
I was just say Stephanie has it, but she was asked not to share it, so.
It's. you'll
It's-
enjoy it.
You'll.
It's
you'll see it.
educational.
Yeah, and I agree, it is tiered, and how it qualifies into those tiers is based on questions asked and points assigned. And part of the problem is comparing, and we talked about this before, the tasks that you do. We have seen in job descriptions where people added all these tasks trying to get their job paid more, get their people paid more. It's not based on tasks, it's based on knowledge base and skill sets to do things. So, yeah, so hopefully,
I'm not saying.
no, I don't disagree. You're tied to the elected officials' salary.
I don't know, without performance evaluation, I don't know how you could do actually based on what the person's responsibility is and how effective.
How well they do it, yeah.
Without some oversight. Well, that's
That's-
where
I-
that could be remedied if we had a system in place to do that.
That's where the elected official that's done that, or the department head that's done that needs to be held accountable for doing that. And
And who
we,
holds them accountable?
it's not the council. It's,
The taxpayer,
the
the
tax-
citizen, the
the-
voter who has
the-
no clue
the
what's going
voters,
on
yeah.
at a micro level.
But think about it, until you came in this office, what did you really know about taxes, how government was made, and how it's spent?
Or how to evaluate if,
A
you know,
thimble of what I
the
found
department
out, which
did
is
a good job.
I mean,
a bucket out of a bathtub.
You had no, okay, so that was fair.
Oh,
I mean, it's just a,
it's
it's
been a
a
learning curve since day one.
unavoidable
Yes.
weakness of our government is people vote for
It's home.
people to represent them and they don't know if they're qualified and they don't know if they're doing a good
You
job.
know that we've had 5 auditors.
Oh,
In the state.
oh, I thought you meant in our history.
In the state,
Wow.
months, every month.
Because
So mine was just too much stress. Yeah.
It's
Lack of
stressful.
appreciation is one of them.
Well, you're right. You're both underpaid. We have proof now.
Well,
But yeah,
if you see the
Yeah.
Wagner Irwin Shealy report,
It
you'll know
reflects,
you're
it
underpaid.
reflects you're underpaid.
You and one other county were,
but you know, it's like, the state doesn't tell these people from the government before, they don't tell them what they did.
Right.
They don't even touch it.
well, you said when you came in, you had a lot of instruction from your predecessor. I'm not gonna mention names. but-
I've thought about that a lot. You walk into the auditor job, you have no idea what you're doing if you haven't worked in these other departments. Yeah.
Chad had a clue.
Coming off the street, I don't
What?
know.
Getting into it. Good luck.
Yeah.
And I still have one.
You have a better clue by the last 2 days. But
Yeah.
this is not a good sampling of the whole year.
3 counties
It's a microcosm, but it's the most important of the year, probably.
last year that no, no, this year, I'm sorry, this year. 3 counties in the state of Indiana that nobody ran for auditor,
What do you do then?
in a sitting auditor, and so if they caucus somebody in, is an auditor, Michelle Long.
So it's
They all
caucus.
resigned, they've all put in their resignations. 3 counties in the state of Indiana that nobody ran for auditor.
So how do we remedy that? Like, is this a fault of the
Overtime
legislature?
should drive up, right? I mean, what would happen is that people get paid more over time.
I
Hopefully.
don't even know at this point in time in this position that the pay would make a difference. I think that it needs to be reevaluated, because you think we do payroll, we do claims. We're, make sure all the reports are done. Capital assets, but we do every bit of real estate, any real estate transaction that's done comes through this office, but when you go to these meetings, or you go to your new training, they don't tell you anything about real estate. You have no idea. I look coming in. You didn't know, you would have no clue you were over the real estate side of the part of the county as well.
When we get the monthly updates from DLGF, I'm amazed at the due dates for those that are, the responsibility falls under primarily the auditor, the assessor, to a lesser degree, the treasurer. Those two, it's like you have this deadline for this form, you have to report this on this tax, you have to, I'm amazed.
All the monthly reports and your day by year account. Yeah, I mean, they keep adding.
They don't know.
Here, legislators have to start all these before they go to that. Yeah. Well, that's.
Well, at least Tom did that. Tom Sauger was the outlier there. He did go through the system and I think he did understand local government.
We get more and more attitude, we just bad and local government from your office.
is
So
the
you guys-
Auditors Association doing anything about it, Debbie? Is the Auditors Association doing anything? Trying? Mhm,
But that's like pushing that.
right. You might need to push the legislature. It needs to go through the legislative. And
Yeah.
You guys are the furthest off market of the other,
of
assessor,
your
auditor, clerk.
comparables.
Yeah. you know,
And the problem is you're compared to others that are having the same problem, right?
Yes.
And that's until and I would suggest to you, you've got to look at, okay, what's it worth to me? Because you said you don't even know if more money will fix the problem.
Some amount
Well,
of more money would.
Well, that's right. How much pain in the butt is it
What
worth
makes it worth the,
to
what
get
makes it
to
worth it?
here?
People
And
do a lot of really
that's-
stressful
that's
jobs
how-
when they make $250,000 a year. Like,
Yeah,
where's that
That's
point
how
where the money?
prosecutors and sheriffs they did lobbied and got what they've got. But it sounds to me like your Auditor Association needs to speak more vocally and more consistently.
They report their tip every year at tax time. Nobody told a single auditor in the state of Indiana that it was now our responsibility this
Mhm.
year. And we have no idea. I spent how many weeks on the phone trying to figure out how to do this. Nobody in the state of Indiana knew that they put that on us.
You also had the RDC added to the budget.
I think your association should file. I think you should follow according to that.
Our other departments,
And that we've been trying, like the artist, we have to be on, and all the bonds and everything, and then all the grants and everything, we just did that fund.
so is that also happening in the treasurer office, assessor, clerk? Are they also taking on extra roles in
Not
that
to that
same way?
extent.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to look at that, it's so much bigger. I mean, they want to find and everything down.
Sure.
It's not that fun without this, without all that.
That is understand, we get that completely.
I mean,
Unfortunately, nobody's going to lobby for
No.
corrections other than you guys. Now, if
I know there's lobbying work, everybody's all
And-
the same.
they need to get the ICCA involved and the AIC and make it a statewide issue to make it.
Right. But Ryan Hawk goes to bat in the legislature for all the different areas, and he's been really good.
Ryan's a person.
We don't
Yeah.
want to be without an auditor in 2 years.
And we want to,
Yes, we do need one.
2026, we're gone.
And I haven't heard anyone else.
August 24th this year, I heard that.
January 1st.
oh my,
Give us time to
they
think
do.
about it. Yeah, we definitely do.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Sure.
What if we
So-
say no?
I know you guys have worked all through all.
We have not.
We will.